Conference recording has started.
The Clewiston City Commission meeting is now called to order. We're happy to have with us tonight, on behalf of the Clewiston Ministerial Association, Pastor Carlos Roque from New Harvest Church. He's going to lead us in prayer. Carlos? Carlos Roque? Okay. All right. Then maybe they're not on the line yet. My apologies. We were just making sure that he was not on the phone, and if he is, that we were going to unmute him. No, you should have his.
Hello.
All right. We'll go ahead and start the meeting with the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Martin, are there any changes in approval to the agenda?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and commissioners, and Mayor, you may want to do a roll call. I heard some people check in, but I'm not sure who all made it. But Tom McVicker, who is a consultant that's worked with us and several other municipalities, counties, and towns, with keeping us up to date and representing our interest and listening in at the LACO discussions through the Corps and others. I'd like to have him give us an update after the public comments if he is online at that time.
Okay, thank you,
Hi,
Mr. Martin.
I'm on the line now.
Thank you,
Okay, thanks, Tom. And we also have Pastor Roque on the line, so we'll go ahead and let him lead us in prayer. Just hit *1 to unmute.
Yes, let's pray. Father God, we just thank you this afternoon for this commission meeting. We just thank you for everybody who's on right now, all the commissioners who are available. I just pray right now for clarity, for wisdom, Father God, and I just thank you that you're causing this city to prosper in a righteous way, and we just thank you for that. And we just thank you for the mountain of government that this city's involved in right now, and we just thank you that it's the righteousness of people that are rising in government in this city, and we just thank you, Father God, that nobody rises or falls without your hand on them, and we just thank you for that right now in Jesus' name. So we just pray for this commission meeting. We just pray, Father God, for open eyes, open ears, open hearts to what you want for this city, because we understand and we know that you want the best for this city, and we just thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we have public comments at this time. If anybody wishes to comment on any issue pertaining to the city of Clewiston, I will give everybody an opportunity at each item to also speak publicly, but if there's anything that you would like to present at this time before the commission, please hit *1 to unmute your phone. Again, *1 for any public comments at this time. Not hearing any, we'll continue with the agenda. Okay. First item is a consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Mr. McVicker, I'll let you go first.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, good. You never know. They said all lines were muted. Okay, just a quick update on what's happening relative to Lake Okeechobee and the Corps of Engineers. There are two official processes going on. One is the new lake schedule. They call it LOSOM, or LOSOM, which stands for the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual. That is a slow kind of plotting process to develop the new schedule. It'll unfold over the next 2.5 years. We're still in the initial phase of deciding how we're going to evaluate the various ideas for the new schedule, and after we decide how we're going to do it, then they'll get into computer models to try various scenarios to improve the schedule. There's one controversial issue, I would say, right now. The most controversial issue is algae. Algae is a big deal in South Florida, as we all know, and they're struggling with how to make algae a parameter that they can use to distinguish between different lake schedules. There's a lot of algae data been collected. Unfortunately, in the last 15 or 20 years, unfortunately, when you look at it all put together, it hasn't been collected in an organized, specific way that will allow you to develop a computer model to estimate what causes the algae, when, and whether there's anything you can do in managing the lake to improve the algae situation. So that's what they're struggling with now. The Corps is under a lot of pressure to monitor the algae and use that as a factor in how they decide every week to operate the lake, whether to send more water out, east, west, or south. So that's a struggle right now that's going on. We're a ways from getting to the end of that. There was a long meeting last Friday, or Thursday, actually, that this was discussed with all the parties that are involved in the process, and it'll probably continue on that way for a little bit longer before they come to some kind of consensus that there's a way to do this. We're at the table. We obviously are algae experts, but we do have a lot of background in the science associated with managing the lake. So we're just watching it, making sure it's used in a way that benefits all the people that have an interest in the lake. And so far, I'm confident. I'm not confident, but I'm encouraged that that's what they are trying to do, and I hope they can pull that off. The other issue that's been out there is how high will they let the lake go once they're finished with the Herbert Hoover Dike repairs. And they won't tell you exactly how high it can go, but last week they did put out an official performance metric that tells you how high they're willing to let it go during the modeling process. And basically they've defined a limit as it'll be allowed to go as high as it did with the previous schedule. The schedule that's been in place really since 1979, it had some minor changes to it throughout the years. The last 10 years it was called the WSE schedule. That's the one that was in place before the current schedule that lowered the lake. But allowing the lake to go to the level that it did in the previous 30 years is a really good thing for everybody. It allows the Corps to take advantage of the $1.6 billion they will have spent in repairing the dike. It gives the Corps a lot more flexibility operationally. If we do have a high water event, they can, rather than automatically go to full max releases, they can temporarily hold some water in the lake, potentially, for weeks or months to take some of the pressure off the maximum releases. Not clear exactly how effective that'll be, but it's a great thing that they have decided and acknowledged that they'll have that flexibility. So it also makes it sound like the money they spent fixing the dike will have been a good investment. So that's a very positive thing. So I'd say on the lake schedule development, that's going to play out over time. The real serious work starts at the end of this year, where they have multiple potential schedules that they'll start evaluating with computer models. Right now, we're still in the prelims. And while we're in the prelims, the Corps decided on July 1st to publish a document they call a planned deviation. In the Corps lexicon, if they have a schedule that's been approved, you know, they always operate by a schedule or a rule. If they want to do something different, they have to propose a formal deviation. They call that a planned deviation. Jacksonville proposes it. It has to be approved in Atlanta. It has to go through all the environmental analysis. If it's a major deviation, they would have to do an environmental impact statement. If it's not perceived to be major, they would do what they call an environmental assessment, and the colonel will sign it, and then Atlanta will approve it. The one they published July 1st, and the public has until July 30th to submit comments on it. It's a very strange document. It is written in a way to give the Corps pretty much unbridled flexibility in how they operate the lake when the stages are low. The theme, my interpretation is the theme of this deviation request is to allow them to do what they did last year. It's designed to lower the lake in the dry season before the summer. And if your concern is water supply, that exposes you to some risk because you don't know if it's going to rain in the wet season or not. And we've had some really bad droughts when the lake was low going into the wet season, and we haven't got the standard rain. It's been a while since we've had that. So that's out there. The disquieting part for a lot of people with a stake in the lake, especially water users, but also people who use the lake for recreation, is it's virtually impossible to predict how the lake will be managed year to year because the Corps has given themselves so much flexibility. I am thinking our main response will be to try and get the Corps to put a little more discipline into the process, to be more specific about what they are going to do and what criteria they will use to decide that. And if they produce a document that's more specific and binding to a certain operation, and they put limits on it so it can't take the lake down to 10.5 before the wet season like they did 2 years ago, or like they did last year, then we'll, it may be okay. But right now it's out for review. There's a lot of interest in it. We're paying very close attention to it for people around the lake. Those are the two main things going on: the schedule process, which is a slow process, and the deviation process, which is very fast. The other awkward thing about the deviation process is they're doing it in the middle of when they're developing a new schedule. So you have questions about, well, what do you really want? Do you want what we're going to come up with in the schedule, or do you really want this deviation? And we've never had a situation where the process is open to pick a new schedule, and in the middle of that process, they propose a major change in the philosophy of managing the lake. So it's a little bit awkward to work through. People are trying to do that, including the Corps, and it's a little early to figure out where that's going to come out. Those are the two official things the Corps is doing. The other thing you may have heard a bunch about in the last couple of weeks is what's been going on in Washington relative to the Water Resource Act and the Savings Clause, which is a federal law that says the Corps can't take people's water away as part of Everglades restoration. There's been a lot of rhetoric around all the issues swirling around up there. Congressman Brian Mast is very active. Other congressmen are very active also. What finally came out of the committee last week was a pretty significant compromise. It pushes the Corps to make algae blooms a factor in how they manage the lake, kind of like what they're doing with the deviation. But it also forces the Corps to evaluate, as part of the schedule process, what it would do if they never used the Port Mayaca lock to lower the lake. In other words, the St. Lucie Canal is taken off the table for lake management, and it all has to be managed either going to the Caloosahatchee or going south to the Everglades. It's not quite as scary because it just asks the Corps to evaluate that, and I'm not sure how that'll turn out. I don't know how the Corps could manage their project without one of their major features, but they'll at least evaluate that. There were a lot of other much scarier ideas on the table in the last week or two. Things like we'll give the Corps overriding authority on water supply out of the lake. Several efforts to pretend that farmers don't exist and water supply was there for the Everglades and the environment and the cities without farmers. You know, you just see a lot of stuff thrown at the wall in the process. What finally came out is reasonable, but somewhat scary, depending on where it goes. But it got out of the House committee, and it probably will get out of the House that way, because I don't know that they want to spend a lot of time on the floor of the House debating things that they debated at length in the committee. So it'll probably get out of the House, and then the Senate will have to do something. They typically have a water bill every 2 years, and so this is the year when they would normally have one. They like to do it early if there's going to be, if it's an election year. Of course, it's always an election year if you do it every 2 years. So chances are there probably will be a water bill, and there's a bunch of other stuff in it for harbors and transportation issues. So it looks like they probably will have one, although I'm no expert on that. But so far, it's we can live with what's out there if it stays that way. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I feel a little weird just droning on like this into the telephone when I can't see the audience. And I know I'm much more into this stuff than the average person, so I hope you're not all falling asleep.
No, Tom, thank you so much. I know that there was a lot of things going on, and I know that we've asked you to look out on our behalf, and I appreciate that you're doing that. I know that you mentioned several things, and there might be some questions from the rest of the commissioners, but I guess I saw where Palm Beach County has made a request for I guess extending the deadline for the I'm sorry, I've got my notes here for the planned deviation.
For the deviation, yes.
Yeah. And I didn't know if that's something that we should consider. Of course, I'm relying on you as the, that you know more about it than we do. If it's something that we should do, or if you believe that it's going to happen, so we might as well either get a letter in, or I guess I just wanted the commission to know that there's a lot of issues going on, and again, we're not anywhere near close to where your expertise is on all this, and I'm just thinking about it and hearing about it, and I just want to make sure that we're protecting our future, because as you know that we're a fishing and farming town, and our reliance on Lake Okeechobee is why we have our community, and we want to protect that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I would say we're definitely in favor of the time extension that Palm Beach County asked for, and I'm sure a lot of other people will ask for the extension. They got theirs in first. There is no way, there's a lot going on. The Corps' got like 6 big public documents out for review right now. Several on Lake Okeechobee, but they've got 2 on the Everglades that are a major big deal. And they all have these very short time frames, and every document is multiple hundred pages, so it's impossible to keep up. So we will definitely, I would love for the city, if the city is willing to request an extension of time. I'm sure a number of other people will be doing the same thing. So if you're inclined to do it, I'm totally on board with that. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. I'll let the rest of the commission ask questions or make comments at this time in regards to Tom's information that he supplied us with.
Is the adjusted metric for the lake levels on the USAC website?
For the algae,
Yes.
it's no. It's buried in a presentation that they gave to the committee.
And Tom, if you could
I
email
can make it available. I can make it available to Molly very easily.
Okay. All right. If you could send that to our city manager, that would be great, and then he could forward to all of us.
Happy to.
That would be fabulous.
Yeah, I can send it to you a lot easier than I can explain it to you, because it's a very complicated, awkward idea. But I'll send it to you and try and explain in an email. I'll send it to the city manager, and he can do with it as he will.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Tom, I just had another question. When you were talking about the discussion about the water, managing Lake Okeechobee and not using the the Port Mayaka Lock. Has any of the discussions on this have they discussed the amount of water that comes in from the north side? I mean, is there, if that, and I know you know this better than I do, but if water is held north of us, the releases aren't as necessary, and it probably could be managed from going west and then going south and then retaining some in the lake. Was that any other discussion at all, if you're aware of it?
That hasn't been discussed in the context of this legislation, because the discussions are very superficial. The idea has been discussed a lot in the core planning process, but of course they always say, this is a study to just come up with a new lake schedule. We aren't building any new projects to hold water north of the lake. That's a different study. So they've kind of separated out one from the other. The core is, and as you know, Molly, what they've done north of the lake for their study there is not going to amount to very much storage north of the lake. The good thing is the state is moving forward with some aquifer storage wells, and they're fully funded. The Corps is not moving forward with any storage north of the lake.
Right, but with the wells and the amount of water that can be held up there, is that not something that would impact on their decision on this? I know I'm probably going down a rabbit trail. It would.
Well, it would, but it's a matter of degree, and it's they're kind of the wells are somewhat limited, and it'll be a while before any of them are ever constructed. But they're definitely a positive. It's definitely a positive development if we start getting some wells in there.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the commission, or Randy, if there's anything from you? I know that the letter was brought up about the city sending a letter. I think it's important that we do that, and I just wanted to make sure that the commission's in agreement that we ask for an extension, or we ask the Corps to extend the comment period, so that there's plenty of time for us to learn a little bit more about it, although we know we have Tom, who knows a lot about it. I just wanted the commission to be aware of the situation that we find ourselves in with this planned deviation.
And my only comment would be, if no one objects, then we will plan to submit a letter with Tom's help and review. We will submit a letter during the comment period, unless there's objection from the commission, based on his recommendation.
No objection from me. Melanie.
Okay. Is there any objection from any other commissioners? Okay. Well, Randy and Tom, we look forward to seeing the letter, and we look forward to having it submitted on behalf of the city of Clewiston.
Okay. I'll get a draft letter over to you.
All right.
Shortly.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate that. All right, Tom.
Well, I appreciate y'all. I really appreciate y'all willingness to be involved. It makes a big difference. And it may not be fun or satisfying, but it really helps the process. If you want a fair process, you're doing a good thing.
Right. Thank you so much, Tom. We appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. We have items A through G. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion from Commissioner Peterson. Is there a second?
So moved.
I have a
Commissioner
second
McKee.
from Commissioner McGahey. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
if you wouldn't mind, I would like to point out to those who are listening that within that consent agenda is a resolution from the Florida League of Cities honoring you for your 20 years of elected service. And I just want to make sure tonight that that's mentioned for
Thank you.
for your leadership and your dedication to the city.
Thank you. I'm honored to serve. You know that. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
If I could interject, thank you, Commissioner, and they did forward a plaque that we have given to the mayor commemorating this achievement, and thank you for mentioning it so that it's on the record.
Yes, sir.
All
I
right.
concur. Mayor Chemness, will you please, or Gardner, will you make sure that we have the other commissioners with us?
You mean on this line that we have Commissioner Rodriguez on the line and Commissioner Atkinson, Vice Mayor Atkinson, and
Okay,
then
I didn't hear them yet. I wanted to make
Okay.
sure.
yes, we show that they're on the call, and I think we heard from both of them before we started this. Are they still on the line? Okay, if you guys could just Vice Mayor Atkinson and Commissioner Rodriguez, if y'all could just shout out and make sure that you're still there, that we can hear you. Did I have to hit star one? Okay. Okay. Commissioner Rodriguez, are you there?
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can, yes.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Congratulations on your 20 years, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor Atkinson?
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, all right, then we have a public hearing coming up this is ordinance number 2020-01, public hearing. It is a final reading. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. And this is ordinance number 2020-01, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, amending 110-495, permitted uses in the Commerce Park Industrial District, CPID, providing for conditional uses, 110-4952, providing for conditional use, approval process, 110-4953, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for repeal of laws in conflict, providing for an effective date. Notices have gone out to all the CPID property owners. At this time, we did not receive any public comments from the property owners for this record. We have the ordinance in front of us. And is there anybody from the public that would like to unmute their phone by pressing star one and state their name for the record? All right. The line's been unmuted at this time. I do not see or hear we do not see or hear anyone wishing to speak about this matter. Are there any comments from the commission? From city staff? If there's not any further comments, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and the recommended motion is to approve ordinance number 2020-01.
So moved.
I have
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Peterson and a second from the Vice Mayor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're happy tonight to have with us a presentation of our financial audit fiscal year 2019. We have Malden and Jenkins with us. I think there's several representatives on the line, so if you will hit star one to unmute, we'll go ahead and let you begin unless our city manager would like to say something or as an introduction to them.
I was going to defer to our finance director, Sherry Howell, to introduce the spokesperson for the auditors and make any comments she had before their presentation. She had a very significant part of this financial report and the comprehensive report, and I appreciate all of her efforts and her staff's in meeting the requirements for the auditors, and I particularly am pleased that the auditors were able to submit in a timely manner, and we were able to meet our obligations to the state given the short time frame in which they had to work with it. So I appreciate all staff efforts and finance director efforts as well as the auditors, and I'll defer to Sherry for any comments she has.
Okay, Sherry?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to just ditto Mr. Martin. I believe it's well said. We did have a short time frame to work within, and I'm very thankful that we were able to work with Malden and Jenkins and get that accomplished. And I believe tonight we have with us Wade Sansbury and Daniel Anderson with Malden and Jenkins. And I believe Daniel Anderson may be presenting tonight.
Thank you, Sherry. We look forward to hearing from Mr. Anderson and Mr. Sansbury. Mr. Anderson, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well, as Sherry mentioned, my name is Daniel Anderson, and I'm an audit director with Malden and Jenkins, and I was responsible for the day-to-day activities for the city's 2019 audit. Additionally, on the line with me is Wade Sansbury, who was the engagement partner with overall responsibility for the city's audit. Included in your agenda packet, you should have two documents. One is the financial statements themselves, and then additionally, we like to provide what we refer to as our auditor's discussion and analysis, which goes through some information about Malden and Jenkins, as well as our required communications to governance under the auditing standards. My presentation tonight is going to focus on that auditor's discussion and analysis document. So if you want to navigate there or pull that up, if you have the full meeting agenda in front of you, the entire PDF document, it does start on page 137. And then at the conclusion of my presentation, both Wade and myself will be available for any questions you have about the financial statements themselves or the auditor's discussion and analysis.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now, obviously, as the prior presenter had indicated, it's a little more difficult to do over the phone than in person. So what I'm going to try and do is, as I go through this document, just identify which page number of the auditor's discussion and analysis that I'm working on. And before I get started, I do want to indicate a huge thank you to Sherry and her team for the work put in. Not only transitioning to a new auditor makes things difficult, but, 2 weeks before we were supposed to start our field work on site was when, everything pretty much got shut down to COVID. So we had to do the audit, I'd say about 95% remotely. And, she worked tremendously hard and was tremendously helpful for us to get the audit completed within the state's required timeline. So I really want to say how much we appreciate working with Sherry and how great it was for this year's audit. Moving to page 1 of the auditor's discussion and analysis, just to provide a quick overview of the presentation that I have. I'll briefly talk about the engagement team as well as some information about Malden and Jenkins. Obviously, we're new to the city, so we do want to give you a little bit of background of our firm. We'll talk about the auditor's report, as well as the other reports that are included within the financial statements. I'll go through the required communications under governmental auditing standards, briefly touch on some accounting recommendations and related matters that we had in regards to the audit, and then answer any questions that you may have. Moving to page 2, Malden and Jenkins is a regional firm with 8 offices throughout the southeast United States. Your audit was conducted from our Bradenton, Florida office location. Our governmental niche is the firm's largest niche, serving approximately 500 governments throughout the southeast. This does include about 126 municipalities such as the cities. One thing that we're extremely proud of is our dedication to the governmental industry, and one thing that I want to highlight from there is one of our partners, Joel Black, was recently appointed the chair of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So it's an honor for us to have the standard-setting entity for all governmental accounting selects someone from Malden & Jenkins to lead that organization for the next 7 years. And then lastly, we did perform a single audit as part of our audit procedures. We perform over 200 single audits on an annual basis, and that's considered to be within the top 20 of firms within the United States. I talked about myself and Wade Sansbury. Additionally, after all of our audit procedures are done, we do have our entire file and the review of the financial statements go through a second partner review for quality assurance. This is performed by Trey Scott, who's got 14 years of experience with the firm. Moving to page 4 of the document, I'll briefly talk about the independent auditor's report. The financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the presentation of the financial statements based on the procedures performed. In our opinion, we do indicate that we provided an unmodified opinion. Therefore, the financial statements are free of material misstatement for the year. Moving to page 5, within the back of the financial statement document, there are 2 additional reports. One we refer to as a Yellow Book report, which is a report on internal controls and compliance with laws and regulations. This is a negative assurance report, so it's a report that, if there is nothing reportable, it's really not going to provide any assurance. It's just going to say, hey, there was nothing that we noted. There was one matter that we did note that was included within this report, which I'll discuss here in just a moment. Additionally, as I mentioned, we did issue a single audit, which is our testing of compliance with regards to the city's internal controls and compliance with laws and regulations related to state grant programs and the expenditures incurred related to them. In performing that single audit, we did note no matters that we felt needed to be warranted to your presentation. There were no findings or exceptions noted in performing that. Moving to page 6, and really I'm going to jump all the way to page 7 to talk about some of those required communications under the auditing standards. In performing our audit, we encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management. There were audit adjustments that were prepared and posted that we provided to management, and we've confirmed that management has posted all of those to the city's accounting records. There were no uncorrected misstatements where we would have proposed an audit adjustment that management elected not to make. In performing the audit, we encountered no disagreements with management over the application of significant accounting principles, the basis for management's judgments on any significant estimates, the scope of the audit, or any of the procedures that were performed in regards to the audit. At the conclusion of the audit, we did obtain representation from management over the accuracy of the information provided to us in order to perform our procedures. We are not aware of management's consultation with any other accountants or what we refer to as opinion shopping. Moving to page 8, there were no significant issues discussed with management related to the business condition plans or strategies that may have affected the risk of material misstatements of the financial statements. Malden & Jenkins is independent with respect to the city, and then we are not aware of any other documents that contain the audited financial statements. Moving to page 9, as I mentioned, within our Yellow Book report, there was one finding that we noted that we considered to be a material weakness, and this was a prior period adjustment that we had the city record. And really the basis for this was, there is a long-term interfund loan between the general fund and the water and sewer fund that was not recorded at the general fund level, which is required under GASB 34. So this required a $479,000 adjustment to the beginning fund balance of the general fund in order to record that long-term interfund loan, or what we refer to as an advance between funds. Additionally, there was an amount due to the pension trust fund from the general fund for an amount of $100,516. And in our discussions with management, we noted that this was a matter that was recorded under an old accounting principle that's no longer effective. So therefore, per discussions with Sherry and her team, there really was no intent for the general fund to record it. The city had just recorded it based on that old accounting pronouncement. So we went ahead and adjusted the beginning fund balance for that amount as well. So in total, those two those two amounts had an effect of $378,688 on the beginning fund balance of the city's general fund. In addition to the one finding, so the finding is something that we're required to report under the Yellow Book requirements. In addition to that, when you move to page 10 of the auditor's discussion and analysis, we do have one matter that we included as a management letter comment. Now, I do want to differentiate between these two because, the finding was considered a material weakness. Management letter comment is more of a, hey, we think that there's a best practice that the city can implement that they currently don't have in place. However, that doesn't mean that there was anything wrong with the information that the city provided to us. And this is a matter that's in regards to, again, interfund activity and the city's use of pooled cash. So currently the city does not have a pooled cash system that they have in place to track the cash within all of the funds for the city. So what we're going to recommend is, instead of having several bank accounts for each fund, the city should consider implementing a pooled cash system, which will allow for all of the transactions to be processed automatically through the general ledger system. And this is also going to help management cut down on the burden of performing multiple bank reconciliations each month, as whenever you do go to a pooled cash system, there's going to be far less bank accounts that you're going to be carrying, therefore far less bank reconciliations that are going to need to be performed. So again, this is a best practice that we just want management to consider, and this is not a matter that we consider a significant deficiency or a material weakness or anything in that regards. And finally, just to close, when you go pages 11 through 19 of the auditor's discussion and analysis, really just provides some basic information about some upcoming GASB pronouncements that may have an impact on the city. I can tell you, since everything that happened with the pandemic, a lot of these pronouncements were delayed 1 year for what their actual effective date is going to be, with the exception of GASB 87, which has been delayed 18 months. So looking forward for the city, the only pronouncement that'll be effective for fiscal year 2020 is GASB statement number 88, which will only bring a little bit changes to the disclosures related to debt. The next two big issuances are GASB's 84 and 87, which will be effective for the city in fiscals 21 and fiscal year 2022. So we'll certainly work with Sherry and her team, to answer any questions that they have about these pronouncements and ensure that the city is implementing these standards appropriately as they become effective. And the last thing to point out, going to page 20 of the auditor's discussion and analysis, again, some additional information about Malden & Jenkins. We do offer complimentary continuing education to our clients. This is typically something that we actually have live sessions, on site, where all of our clients can come to one location. Obviously, with the change and everything to the pandemic, we're currently doing this through webinars, which the next one I actually just sent the information to Sherry a little bit earlier this afternoon, but will be in late August. Additionally, we provide quarterly newsletters to our clients that just provide some information about some current events that are going on within the governmental accounting world. So again, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to serve the city. I really wish that we could have been present for this meeting so we could get to know the commission members a little bit better, but we look forward to getting to know you guys here over the next several years. And with that, Wade and I are available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let Commissioner McGahee, she was the represented the commission in forming the auditor committee and leading that into bringing y'all on board as the recommendation. To see if she has any comments or questions.
I do. With regard to the implementation of your recommendation for the pooled cash system, is that something is that some action that we need to take on our part, or what's needed in that regard?
Well, I think, obviously, as I mentioned, based on what we perform, there's nothing that the city is currently doing wrong. So it's really just a matter of, I don't know if it's something at the commission level that an action needs to be placed. it's just something that Sherry's going to have to work with on her team to see not only when is it feasible, but also when is the time that the city can bring it on to where the change to this is going to be seamless, and you're not going to have any issues related to it. Pooled cash is a great system, but if you don't have a firm understanding of how it works, it's also something that can get out of whack really quickly. So, we'd really just recommend that Sherry and her team consider, and I know that based on our discussions with her, she knows that this option is out there, and she knows about it. However, it is a pretty different task to take on, so it's just going to be a matter of, when she's able to fully get the time to put in to make sure that it's set up correctly, and she's able to test it properly before she makes it go live within the city's accounting software.
Okay, so Sherry, can you hear me?
Yes, Commissioner McGahee.
Okay. So is it your intention to work toward that system?
Yes, and I will be happy to answer any questions with or go over any of that with anyone who, if you would, I'd be happy to discuss it. It's not something that, yes, we have the capabilities. There are variables that are involved, and we just have to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row before we start that. So we have a couple of issues that we will have to change in order to do that, to work towards that. But I'll be happy to explain it to you anytime.
Okay.
Sherry, is that something you can share with us at the first budget workshop that we have? Just kind of go over it with the commission so that we understand it?
Yes. Okay. I could do that.
And if I could comment from a management perspective, Sherry and I have discussed it. I certainly think it's an achievable goal, and certainly I think it's from an efficiency and accuracy standpoint, and cutting down on manual tasks is something we should aspire to on a schedule, as the auditor mentioned, that's reasonable, like, possibly right after the budget season or something to that effect. But I think it is something we definitely want to transition to as expeditiously as we can, and we'll be looking at any costs associated and so forth. But from my experience, this is something that is very commonplace and should be in place within the city's operations, and it's just a matter of timing. And if there is any action necessary, we'll get back to the board in terms of that, but we can go ahead and give an update as the mayor suggested at one of the work sessions. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a question for Randy or Sherry, but with regard to the 2019-001 prior period adjustment comments, with regard to the long-term interfund loan between the general fund and the water sewer fund, can you explain to me how that works, and are we paying that money back, or what's happening exactly there?
Would you like me to answer, Mr. Martin?
No, you go first.
Yes, that loan is a combination of, and you may be familiar, I'm sure that you're familiar with the budget workshops, but it's a combination of the all juice loan, where the general fund borrowed $400,000 for the all juice in order to build a building for them in Commerce Park. So we currently have a loan that we're holding with all juice, and it came from the water sewer fund. And then it's a combination of fire truck loan. And yes, we are paying the money back, and it was recorded when it happened. And as Mr. Anderson pointed out, when GASB 34 came out, it should have been recorded a different way, and it was recorded on our long-term debt, and I didn't have any issues before, and so I left it alone. I mean, it is something that we deal with, but it needed to be recorded a different way. So now that's what we've done.
Yeah. And I understand that. I just wanted there to be an explanation on the record as to what it was.
Yes,
But
we did have it recorded, so to speak, in our long-term debt. I mean, it is, as you know, it's there, and it appears in our financials. So
I understood. It's just a matter of reporting it in a different manner. So
okay.
Thank you, Sherry. That's all my questions with regard to the report.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson?
I'm good.
Okay. Vice Mayor Atkinson?
I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yeah, I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. All right. There's several things I'd like to state. One, I'd like to thank Malden and Jenkins. I know that on page 8 of management's discussion and analysis that you guys looked at the economic factors of our community, and I appreciate the time that it took to analyze what's going on here, and that that we have not resumed at the pre-recession pace, but that we are beginning to recover. And that has been my hope for several years, and I'm excited to see that, you as outsiders came in and looked at it and realized that we have been through some tough days, but better days are ahead. The other thing is that I'd like to just tell you how much I appreciate the information on the future accounting changes. To have that depth of information in this report is wonderful, and also that you guys provide continual learning to our staff and information to all of us in regards to accounting. That is so good to see, and so I appreciate that so much. I also want to just mention that on page 76, I'd like to offer Sherry congratulations that there was an outstanding comment or finding since 2009, and over the last several years I know she was working on it, but since Randy's been on board, I know she's had the time to devote to address this issue, and so that finding was removed in the 2019 audit. So I'd just like to congratulate her for the work that she did with her staff to get us to where we're at today. I appreciate that so much. The other thing is that Mr. Anderson, you mentioned one of your colleagues is on has been selected to be on the GASB board. I believe is what you said, and I just want to offer him our congratulations for that. That's fabulous, and that we're happy to see that.
Thank you very much.
We'll pass on our congratulations to him. We would appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Martin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry. This is Wade Sansbury, the partner in charge. I've tried to interject a couple of times, but I think I was on mute, so I apologize for that.
That's all right, Wade. Go ahead.
But before we get done, I just wanted to kind of echo some of what Daniel said. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to serve the city, and this situation, the timing of the award, and then obviously the COVID situation made things a little bit more difficult than we all anticipated. But we're very, very happy with how Sherry helped us get through this, and all of her team and staff. Again, very, very responsive. Any and all requests were answered timely. They did a really good job at helping us really push through everything to get this thing done by the deadline. And I echo what Daniel said. I would prefer to be there with you in person tonight, but hopefully we'll be able to do that in upcoming years. But again, very much appreciate all of y'all's hard work and allowing us to serve the city. This is what we do. This is what we pride ourselves in, and we're very, very happy to share our knowledge and expertise with the city for your benefit. And as far as Joel Black goes, he's an excellent individual. He and I actually made partner together back in 2005, and to have him be the lead of what is the guiding factor and the guiding light for all governments across the entire United States, it's really just unbelievable to know that that's where he's going to be for the next 7 years. So we've got a real good insight into all GASBs coming down the line because of him. And if there's ever any kind of issues or GASBs that are really going to affect you all, that you all need extra guidance on, we're going to be very, very happy to help you in that regard. So again, just wanted to say a little something before we get off, but again, just thank you so much for allowing us to serve the city.
This is Commissioner McGahee, and I have one more question before I let everybody go. Just for the purposes of explaining to the public, can someone explain how the 2009-1 matter was resolved? And the question was asked to me whether or not the city should have an outside CPA firm. Is that something that's required or typical of cities in the day-to-day operations of the city? Or are we okay with the staff that we have, and do we have any issues there?
Well, I'll take that one. You know, that particular finding is kind of a little bit of a pointed one, if you will. We certainly, well, let me back up. So preparing your financial statements is not an issue so long as we believe that you all can take responsibility for those financial statements. And, you know, previous auditors must not have felt that was the case. Through our process, through our work with you all, through our understanding of management and the finance department, we believe that you all were fully capable of taking on responsibility for those financial statements. So that's why that point was able to be taken off. Certainly, there are some of our clients out there that actually prepare their financial statements 100% themselves, and we just actually audit them and apply comments to them. But having us prepare your financial statements, I kind of like it to having a CPA firm, prepare your tax return. You know, if a firm has the expertise and experience to prepare thousands and thousands of returns on an annual basis, they're going to be much more capable and efficient at doing that than you would be doing just your own personal return on an annual basis. And so this is what we do day in and day out. I don't do any other type of I don't serve any other type of client. Daniel doesn't either. We serve only governmental entities. And so having someone like us prepare your financial statements, we believe is just a really good, smart thing to do. And certainly within all of the current standards, there is no issues with regards to that. Now, the OMB, the standard setting bodies and independence requirements have changed back in 2018, and they continue to look at that. And obviously, if that were to actually change and not be allowed, then obviously we would recommend that you all obtain the services of another firm to help you do that. But at this point in time, that was part of our proposal, that was part of our process, and that's something that we absolutely can do and enjoy doing for our clients.
I have to tell you, I was holding my breath because I was excited to have an outside firm that, like you said, just specializes in just governmental entity type accounting. And I was so pleased with the report. I think it was good. I know Sherry does a good job, and I know she was probably worried about having someone from the quote outside come in, but in my opinion, I think it was a good job done by all. So I appreciate the work that you did.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner McGahee, we also appreciate the work that Malden Jenkins is doing on our behalf, and certainly the committee that spent so much time in reviewing this and making the recommendation. We appreciate their efforts, and know that you were right there working with them to present to us where we're at today. And so I'm glad it's worked out the way it has on behalf of the city. Mr. Martin, is there anything else you wanted to ask or comment that you wanted to make?
Just in closing, I'd like to, of course, ditto what's been said in terms of, I'm very pleased. This was one of the administrative goals that I had with regard to the city's financial reporting. We've made some progress all year with staff giving regular monthly reports to the board. We've made great progress, and that's no criticism of anything done or not done in the past. It's just something we've committed to. Looking ahead, this isn't the last. I fully expect next year we will be on a much less strenuous schedule, and we'll have this information done much earlier than the required deadline. I know that will benefit the auditing firm as well as staff, and certainly we'll all feel better about that. So I think that's achievable and will be done. The last thing I would like to say is also we have additional goals administratively to aspire towards possibly getting a CAFR that could be recognized and receive the Government Finance Officers Association recognition for that document. That'll be a future goal that we'll work with as the staffing and the process evolves. But this is an important area of local government that will really help us in our budgeting processes and all other processes going forward. So I'm excited and very pleased. I joined Commissioner McGahee and the mayor in recognizing our committee that helped us select the firm. I'm very pleased with the outcome and look forward to several more years of good relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And Mr. Anderson and Mr. Sansbury, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance number 2020-02. This is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, providing for the registration of vacant buildings, providing for purpose, definition, registration, resident agent, sale, maintenance, fees, exemption, penalties, inclusion in the Code of Ordinances, conflict, severability, and effective date. Mr. Martin?
This is, of course, the first reading. This was an item that came up in some of our goal setting and discussions about the needs. Staff had indicated consideration be requested for additional tools. Board members had given feedback. This is something that's been discussed for a while, but this was an effort put forward by the city attorney's review, and it has been reviewed by staff and also by the Planning and Zoning Board. This, of course, is the first reading. I've received a little bit of feedback, which I can comment on later, but at this point I would defer to City Attorney and to Travis in either order to make their comments with regard, Travis Reese, our Community Development Director, with regard to the report from the Planning and Zoning Committee, Advisory Group, as well as the City Attorney's comments about the ordinance itself. And again, I have some feedback to provide later. So Travis, you want to start if you're online?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners, City Manager. This is a vacant building. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. This is as Mr. Martin discussed, this is the vacant building registration ordinance. It has been reviewed. Planning and Zoning Board did approve it unanimously to move forward. A little quick recap of it. If the building is vacant for more than 2 months, the owner will have 30 days to register the building. The building would have to be re-registered each year, and there is a schedule of fees for that renewal, original registration and the renewal attached to this ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Brandenburg, if you also would like to make a comment, and then I'll let the commission ask questions.
Yes, any vacant residential building which the owner executed an affidavit that they intend to resume occupancy of the structure within 180 days is exempt from the registration requirement. So for your part-time residents, they don't have to worry about this. and they don't have to register their homes when they're away during the summertime. That's the only other thing I had to add.
Okay. All right. Let's start with the questions. Any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay, not
Yeah,
hearing
Mayor,
any.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question, Mayor, for you.
Yes.
Yeah, Mayor, this, as anything that we take on, this could be very cumbersome. Are we going to concentrate on the US 27 corridor first, before we go into the residential? Do we have a game plan that we're going to execute as far as, what side are we going to, deal with first, if it's our commercial districts or our residential?
Mr.
I
Martin?
have a similar type of questions, and I'm just going to tag on to his question because I'm worried about enforcement of this, and I know that this is something that our code enforcement officer has asked for, and I'm trying to be supportive of it, but I'm a little bit concerned about the enforcement side. So I had talked to the city manager, Randy, earlier today about the possibility of just implementing this with regard to the commercial sector in our community first, and really to see how it works out. So I guess I'd like to hear from the code enforcement side or the city manager if Randy has had a chance to discuss that and what the feeling is there, because I, along with Commissioner Rodriguez, worry that this is just going to be overwhelming.
Well, as you and I discussed, Commissioner McGahee, I also had a conversation with Commissioner Rodriguez, and the topics were very similar, and the comments. Certainly, from what I have heard during my tenure here the past year, the priority discussions have been among the commissioners has been focused mainly on commercial vacant buildings. Some of the feedback I've gotten, there may be similar concerns about residential, but I just haven't heard them. They've mostly been about the commercial area. So it'd be my recommendation that we focus on that as to how you do the ordinance adoption to do that. I'll leave that to our legal counsel for guidance, whether you want to adopt in phases or do you go ahead and adopt and just have an administrative procedure. But it would be my recommendation that we do focus, if that is the area of concern, on commercial and see. I think that would certainly be easier achieved than doing all of them at one time. That's going to take a while, and it might reduce the effectiveness in the commercial area if we don't focus on that, at least in the early stages. But I'll stop and let other commissioners comment, but I certainly think that's very, very reasonable to consider in these discussions before you finalize this ordinance, where your priorities are, and are we seeing the kind of problems in the residential vacant properties that we are in commercial? I know there's some, obviously, and I haven't had a chance to get a reaction from staff on the enforcement elements of that, but we're committed to, do our very best to enforce whatever the commission authorizes and adopts. But it certainly is a bigger bite to chew if we try to do all of them initially. So I'll stop there.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
Michael.
Go ahead.
I agree 100% that we should focus on the commercial right now and get that process in place of what works, what doesn't work, and then put more on it. That's where I stand, and I think that's how we should move forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson, is there any other comment, questions?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I agree with the commercial aspect.
And I think the reason that why I brought this up the last time is our last meeting, or asked for it to be on the continual reminder. And Gary, I want your input on this. Is that to me the Highway 27 corridor has been an issue for so many years, and that we're seeing the vacant buildings, and I want to see those addressed first before we move off Highway 27 and maybe 2 blocks behind it or 1 block behind it on commercial property. I think that is, to me, the blight that we see in our community, and it needs to be addressed. So I agree with my fellow commissioners that the commercial, especially the Highway 27 corridor, needs to be addressed on vacant buildings first before we move into any other area.
It's Melanie. With Mr. Brandenburg, with regard to Section 4, how does that work with if the property is owned by an entity? Is there any way for us to better word that so that if it's a non-local, a corporation is either a Florida corporation or not a Florida corporation, but it's not necessarily a Clewiston corporation. So is there something that we can do to make it clear that we want some kind of boots on the ground if it's an entity that's the owner?
Well, yes, I could reword that section and make that clearer. Anybody that does business in the state of Florida is required to register with the Secretary of State a resident agent, or they're not supposed to be doing business here. Corporations don't always do that, as you know. So we could make that section, I think, a little more specific.
So a registered agent typically accepts service on behalf of a corporation, but as you know, there's a lot of corporate entities that provide that service, and I think really what the code enforcement department is looking for is someone that they can put their hands on that actually has something to do with the property. A registered corporate agent may simply be there to accept service as the company gets sued and doesn't really know anything else about the company. So, if we could clean that up with maybe just a little more clarity about that we want someone that we can call and that's familiar with the property. I think that would help.
Yes. Yes, I can do that.
Okay, and Mr. Brandenburg, what about you've heard the commission discussion about focusing on commercial. How do we accomplish that we focus on commercial and we don't dilute these efforts right now with residential?
Mayor, you can do that in 2 ways. The first way would be to delete industrial and residential from the ordinance entirely. The second way would be to instruct your code enforcement department to start phasing in of this ordinance in the commercial areas and to later address other areas if they're successful.
Mr. Martin,
so that would be the
right, we would need to decide as a commission, but Mr. Martin, as a city manager responsible for the day-to-day activity, which process or which process do you envision would be the most, compliant one to get this done?
Well, and I appreciate what the city attorney said. I think he's exactly right. We could do it either way. The only concern or challenge sometimes, if it's on the books, we operate a lot of this by complaint. And people are going to say, you mean it's on the books, but you're not going to enforce it on the residential if you approve it, and just say, no, we're going to focus on the commercial first. That could send a confusing message to the community and possibly staff, but we could clarify it with staff. But
I prefer
my most expeditious way, I think, would be, and it sounds like someone else is agreeing, would be not to include the residential in the ordinance at this time, okay, if that's your decision when you adopt it, and then later add it in once you've got a good handle on the commercial side of it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we strike any reference to residential to ordinance number 2020-02, and that we need Section 4 to be a little bit more definitive or specific, I think, in the rewording to ensure that the resident agent is someone that we can contact and be in touch with and not have it to be someone we can't reach. Is that my understanding so far?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Brandenburg? Is that
Yes.
okay? All
yes.
right.
No, one question for you. Do you want to leave in industrial, or do you want to strike that as well?
I prefer to strike that as well, and so that we can actually just get our arms around the commercial districts right now. I think that's as we've discussed as a commission, that our face, which is US 27, is our priority, and by limiting it strictly to commercial, because I don't think we have any industrial area along US 27.
Well, the only, if I can interject, there is one exception to that on the east end of town, if I remember correctly in my review of that there is a parcel there that's industrial that's currently vacant. Travis, can you comment on that? Am I right or incorrect on that?
No, Mr. Martin, you're correct. On the east side of town, on north and south side, you have the old Everglades Machine Shop as industrial zoning. In the south side, you have the fertilizer plant as all industrial zoning. Those are the only sections that are not, that are industrial on US 27.
Yeah, and we had talked about that in our work session. We might want to revisit the zoning classification, particularly on the piece on the north side. But that aside, I just want to make sure everyone was on the same page. Either way is, I think, fine. I still agree with the concept that we would focus on the commercial along the corridor. But I just wanted to point out that building is vacant and it is zoned industrial. So,
in my opinion, I stand corrected, and I think we need to leave it in. Gary's right. Both of commercial and industrial should probably be included if our intent is to focus along US 27.
Okay, and I agree that the focus should be Highway 27, whether commercial or industrial, but that needs to be the focus.
Melanie, I want to say one more thing. Can we make sure that clerk puts this on the calendar, that we follow up with this in 1 year to see where we're at, so that we can evaluate how it's going, so that we don't just have another ordinance on the book that no one's dealing with, and have a report as to what's being accomplished, if anything, in regard to implementation of this ordinance?
Yeah, my comment, that's certainly achievable. We can do that, and we'll make that tag. But I anticipate you're going to get a regular report on the progress once action's taken, more regularly than annually, but at least on an annual basis to look at whether you want to go back and revisit the ordinance with regard to residential or tweak it in some other way is a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's not any other comments from the commission, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comments at this time. Please star 1 your phone once it's unmuted. Okay, are there any public comments in regards to ordinance number 2020-02? This is the first reading. Okay, not hearing any public comments for ordinance number 2020-02. We'll go ahead and close the public comment. Okay, and as discussed, the recommended motion is to approve ordinance number 2020-02 on first reading, with striking any mention of residential, and amending section 4 to be definitive on the issue of a resident agent and what the requirement might be. Is there any other request from the commission or from staff at this time in regards to 2020-02? Okay, is there a motion to approve as mentioned and to set the public hearing for August 17th, 2020?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Rodriguez, a second from the Vice Mayor. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda, Randy, is resolution number 2020-40. and I'm sure that Sherry is ready to discuss this.
Yes, we have reviewed our financial projections prepared by the finance director with the information that's currently available. We anticipate getting additional information this week from the state, additional guidance that will be impactful on the upcoming budget cycle in terms of particularly state revenue projections. So this is a fluid, rapidly evolving situation. But Sherry has put together some projections. We do feel at this point, and I feel it's very important, that we recommend that the millage not be considered to be raised above its current level. And in so doing, we are required to timely take action on this resolution, and that we set what the maximum millage rate that would be considered in the upcoming budget cycle. I do not believe it's the year to raise the millage rate with everything, all the other challenges we've had. But it is going to be a challenging budget cycle, and we're going to have to approach it in some ways more conservatively than we have in the past because of the impacts of COVID-19 on our current year budget as well as the coming fiscal year budget as best as we can project. Without further ado, I'll defer to Sherry to go through the task of reviewing this, which is required that we make this decision, as I understand it, before the 1st of August, and report it and record it, and she has done the homework on it. We will be having, you approved in the, last comment I'll make is you approved in the consent agenda a draft budget schedule, that a development schedule, tentative, that will begin with an update on the revenue summary that will go into much greater detail beginning Monday at 5 o'clock. We're going to hold that meeting in person, the plan at the Beardsley Room in the John Boy Auditorium, socially distanced, and we will take all the other necessary precautions, and we'll discuss budget-related items, including the impact of CARES dollars and what we're requesting from the county. The county commissioners are expecting to act on that distribution recommendation, a formula, at their meeting on the 28th of July. So I'll stop, and I may make further comment later in the meeting, but I wanted to at least bring that into this discussion. So tonight, this resolution before you, I'll defer to Sherry to review it.
Sherry?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Resolution 2020-40 basically approves the information that we are required to submit to the property appraiser, or actually submit in the TRIM. We submitted electronically in the Department of Revenue electronic process, Truth in Millage, and it goes to the property appraiser. So we're required to return these forms by August the 4th, and there are 4 forms that are involved. The DR 420 is the Certificate of Taxable Value that sets the proposed millage rate and the date and the time of our tentative budget hearing. And as Mr. Martin outlined in his earlier discussion, we are proposing, due to the preliminary budget figures that we're coming up with, we're proposing to set the tentative millage rate to keep it the same at the 6.5314, and set the date and the time of the tentative budget hearing for September the 10th at 5:30. And that would be at the commission chambers, unless there's a reason, and there are, we do have directions for how we would proceed, and I'm sure Attorney Brandon Berg would let us know how we would proceed if we had to do that virtually. Then the second set of forms that we return, that we complete, are the TIF forms, the DR 420 TIF. Those are in regards to the 2 CRA funds that the city has. We have a CRA, Clewiston Redevelopment Agency, and we have a CRA expansion. And both of those will see some of the tax money will go to those funds this year. whereas the first one, the CRA, I believe it's been since 2012 that the taxable value, the base taxable value of 2006, that this has been the first year that it's been above. So that's good news for that. And then the DR 420 MMP, the maximum millage calculation, that selects the preliminary maximum millage that we could do. And then, of course, you've got some information in here for your review. The certified gross taxable value that we're using for operating purposes to do the calculations this year for us that we received from the property appraiser's office by July 1st is $259,050,600, and that is an increase over last year of $16,488,807. And there is a page for informational purposes, change in assessed valuation. That's a 6.36 increase from last year, and 3.13 million of that is due to new construction, and the rest of that is due to revaluations. So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions.
Is there any questions from the commission or comments? Okay. The resolution number 2020-40, I'm going to read it by title. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving the Florida Department of Revenue forms DR 420, DR 420 TIF, and DR 420 MM-P for the City of Clewiston regarding the 2020 truth and millage trim process. Sherry, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Only to say that the difference between the rollback rate and the current millage rate is about is $77,613.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martin, is there anything else you would like to add?
Just to say that it's very pleasing that this year, despite all the other potential things that we got to be worried about with regard to state shared revenues and so forth, that the calculations show that we would gain some funding for our CRA. This will give us the opportunity to call that group together, the advisory committee, and make some recommendations on plans that could boost some of the things that have been done in the past can be reconsidered, such as facade grants, things of that nature that could help be a boost to our properties in that zone, that district. So I'll stop at that to say that that will be our next step once all the numbers are finalized, to getting that group organized to discuss possible ways to utilize that funding to benefit the community.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comments. Again, we'll unmute the lines. You'll have to hit *1 to make a public comment in regards to resolution number 2020-40. Okay. Are there any public comments at this time in regards to resolution number 2020-40? Not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the line. And again, the recommendation is to approve resolution number 2020-40 as read by title.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Peterson. Is there a second? Did I hear a second? Okay, second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 2020-41. Mr. Martin?
Yes, this, of course, is related to the actions taken previously by the board to abandon and vacate alleys and easements, create easements in the Block 201, the general plan of the Clewiston, Florida. This is related to the property where the Hampton Inn was done. This preceded me, the action of the board taking this, so I'll defer to the attorney for any guidance he has. But as I understood it, there was a requirement stipulated that the resolution had to be done with the city manager confirming that all those actions had been taken properly. And now that the project is near, but it's been completed, we haven't issued the final CO, but the temporary CO has been issued, and the owner has opened up the facility for public use. And he told me today he had a really good weekend for his first effort, which we're really glad to hear. But it's a beautiful facility and turned out very nice, and I certainly applaud the board's actions to facilitate it by taking these actions necessary for that project to occur. And with that, I'll stop and defer to the city attorney if he's got any comments on this particular item before you act upon it.
Mayor, when the commission initially considered the vacation of the alley and easements, there were some outstanding issues regarding funding available for necessary easements and right-of-way and the cost of relocating any utilities that had to be moved in that alley. This action today just cleans that up for the record and completes the abandonment and vacation process.
Thank you, Mr. Brandenburg. This is resolution number 2020-41, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, confirming the city manager's certifications regarding ordinance number 2016-06, abandoning and vacating an alley and 2 5-feet easements located in Block 201 of the General Plan of Clewiston, Florida, as revised, located in line on or between lots 1 through 24, inclusive, and lots 25 through 36, inclusive. Are there any questions or comments by the commission? Not being any comments by the commission, we'll go ahead and unmute the lines for public comment. Please hit *1 to unmute your line. Again, *1 if there's any public comments in regards to resolution number 2020-41. Not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the lines. Okay. All right. Just making sure there wasn't any other comment from the commission on those questions.
No, yeah, Mayor, I just, if I may, I want to ditto what Randy said. I had a chance to visit the facility a couple of days ago, and it's a gem. It looks beautiful, and I congratulate Harry for opening the Hampton, and it's a real nice centerpiece for our city, and hopefully that's just the beginning of good things to come in the future on our 27 quarter.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez. I'll take it. Is that a motion to approve resolution number 2020-41?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Rodriguez. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by the Vice Mayor. Any other additional questions or comments in regards to resolution number 2020-41? If all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Martin.
Okay, the next item is a purchase recommendation for equipment replacement. We had in the budget funds for related to substation upgrades and distribution system in the electric system. But for a number of reasons, the materials are not available to do this in a timely manner during this fiscal year. Also, we're pursuing some grant funding that may take care of some aspects of some of our needs in the electric department. So we didn't want to jeopardize any that could be funded with grants, and we also knew we couldn't complete that activity during this fiscal year. So we also are aware that because of COVID-19 delays related to that situation with production of vehicles, this particular piece of equipment that was needed for replacement in next year's budget needs to be moved up and ordered well in advance because of the delays in the production when you place an order. So for all of those reasons, and since it wasn't being used for the originally intent approved item in the budget, the staff has asked that we convert the use of these funds for the purchase of this equipment. I'll recognize Danny Williams, if he's not asleep up there in the mountains of North Carolina, who's been listening in, who's on vacation and graciously agreed to participate to make comments about the need for the equipment. But that's pretty much the background, and we've got a very competitive quote to go forward and make sure.
Okay, Danny, are you on there?
Yep. Thank you, Randy. Yes, this is a pretty important piece of equipment for the electric department. This is a truck that's used on every call out. We use it to haul equipment, and it is about a 15 to 16-year-old vehicle. And one of my concerns also for next year's budget, this truck was one that I was considering for next year's budget, but also I've got a water department truck. I've got a water plant truck. They're all early 2000s. I also lost a truck in the wastewater. Individual had a wreck and they totaled the truck. So I've got quite a few vehicles, and when this opportunity, like Randy just explained, I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to use those funds and reduce next year's budget on vehicles.
Any questions of the commission for Danny or for Randy? Okay, it's resolution number 2020-42, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, authorizing the purchase of a 2020 Ford Super Duty F-250 pickup truck from Allen J. in the total amount of $32,078. We'll go ahead and open it for public comments. Please hit *1 if you would like to comment on resolution number 2020-42. Not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute the phones again. Okay, and is there anything from our finance director or from our attorney in regards to resolution 2020-42 before we put on this? Okay, not hearing anything. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2020-42?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Peterson and a second from the Vice Mayor. Any additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next on the agenda is the resolution number 2020-43. Approves the amendment to the Gateway South PUD Master Concept Plan. Mr. Martin?
Just a couple of preliminary comments, and then I'd like to recognize the planning, our community development director, to make comments on behalf of the actions reviewed and the actions taken by the Planning and Zoning Board regarding this proposed change. I do think this is a very important item for the city, and it's the first step in a process to begin to meet some of our housing needs. But I'll stop at that and just say that where we're at with this, and Travis can comment further on the history, but the commission adopted an ordinance back in 2006, and that information is in the agenda package for anyone, that in effect was the first planned unit development approval, as I understand it, within the city. It was the first one. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, that project did not proceed and was not developed as planned. More recently, the owners of the property, U.S. Sugar Corporation, have engaged the Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated to present a modification to those plans that were approved back then, the concept plan, which lays out the general layout of the property and what's being proposed. I won't go through the details of that. I'll leave that to either staff or the representative from Stantec, who is, as I understand it, will be on the line to comment on behalf of the applicants. And again, I'll let Travis comment on the recommendation of the board. I did want to point out one just little minor clarification. For the record, today we received a minor plan modification that essentially only has two typographical corrections to it. One, they're both very minor, and we just wanted to make sure we used the July 14th plan, the sketch that was sent out today, just because of those two typographical errors that don't really change the plans, but just for the record, we wanted to have the most up-to-date plan. So if you were confused why that latest version came out, that has two minor clerical corrections in the language on it. It doesn't change the map in any regard. One is a reference to, like I say, there were typos, and we can review those in detail if anyone has any specific questions before you're asked to take any action. I'll defer to Travis to comment and then introduce Stantec, recognize them to make comments on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Commissioners, as Mr. Martin pointed out, this is our first PUD for the south side that was actually approved back in 2006. With that PUD, the requirement in the code is that when approved, they must have a master concept plan, and when there are significant changes to that plan, it needs to come back to the City Commission for approval. There is some changes to the plan, as Mr. Martin pointed out. The July 14th master concept plan shows the new layout, the roads, how they would flow, and it reduces the approved commercial. It reduced it down from 75,000 square feet down to a maximum of 15,000 square feet. And with that reduction in commercial, it increased or allows them to increase an additional 170 residential dwelling units up to a maximum of 570, which is still much below our comprehensive plan possible density there. So with that, I could turn it over to Stantec. It's basically the requirements why they're here. They want to change after so many years, and they haven't came back with any plats yet. Before they do, they wanted to make these changes to the master plan. So any questions from the commission?
One comment, Travis. Could you also comment on the corner, I call it the north east corner of the property, where a portion of it that was in the original PUD is not in this modification request? As I understand it, I believe that's under different ownership now, but it's still zoned commercial. If you could comment on that change. There's no change to the PUD.
Yes, that is correct. The little section that is now not in this new master concept plan, that small portion, which has now been reduced as well, that will still be in the old concept plan. There was some discussion at Planning and Zoning Board about the 5-story hotel. That could still be done on either, but if it develops on the old section, what I'm going to call the old section in that northeast corner, that is not part of this master concept plan, so it would have to be developed with the old plan. It's not a significant change. There wouldn't be significant changes there because most of this new concept plan is for 90% of the area. We were more concerned about the traffic flow, the density. So Mr. Martin is correct. There is a section in there that still would be, if developed, would have to use the old plan. So the old plan still would be in effect just for that small portion.
Thank you, Travis.
Okay, I believe that there's someone from Stantec on the line.
Josh, are you online?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. My name is Josh Philpott. I'm with Stan here representing the applicant, U.S. Sugar Corporation. Thank you staff for the introduction and the high-level summary of what we're proposing. As you heard, we have submitted a PUD amendment to amend the master concept plan to roll back a little bit of the commercial uses that were commercial intensity that was originally approved for 75,000 square feet to down to 15,000 square feet of commercial, with an increase of 170 residential dwelling units on the site. Overall, the property that U.S. Sugar owns is plus or minus 116 acres, and the proposed development is well below the density permitted in the comprehensive plan. And we worked with staff to modify the site plan based to allow for better traffic flow, as well as, in speaking with traffic, the proposed revisions have a significant reduction of about 1,100 trips per day, based on the reduction in the commercial, and that's primarily the one of the major impacts that we analyzed. In working with staff, we also shifted an access point to be to line up with some existing access on the property or across the street from the property. So with that, that's all I have. If there's questions, I'm more than willing to, I'm here to answer any questions that may come up, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Mr. Philpott, thank you so much. Questions or comments from the commission?
Mayor, I've got one thing.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
On the highway, it looks like they might have had a retention pond or something up against the residential where they took out the commercial. Is there going to be some kind of buffer or anything between the highway and the homes?
Absolutely, absolutely. We will have a landscape buffer installed along the northern property line between US 27 and the residential and the first residential pod.
Okay. I just know we've got some other areas in town that were kind of got a little bit of an issue where development was built, and now that was kind of never addressed. So I just want to make sure that that's addressed, and it looks like y'all already have.
Correct. Yes, there will be one there.
Okay, thank you.
And keep in mind, Commissioner, that when they come back to plat this, those times we can also take a look and make sure that the platting shows those areas. We're very familiar the areas that you're pointing out that we currently have that after built, we wish we would have put something more in there.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, Mayor, I was around in '06 when the first project was presented, and we were flying pretty high back then, and pretty good times, and we were all excited, and of course, the economy, dropped, and Bonita Bay backed out. But you don't know how excited I am to see U.S. Sugar present this project. You know how much we need housing here in our community. And one question that I had, are we going to tie this development, is it going to tie into the golf course in any way where these residents will be able to go on to our golf course?
Just by street access, with the modification we have with the street alignment, it will give them easy access by golf cart or by vehicle to the golf course. Of course, the railroad track in between, they would have to go out and cross at the existing crossing. Whether there'll be any other requirements, that, as I understand it, they're planning a homeowners association, whether they're going to have any other requirements, that'll be up to the owners, and you'll see that at the development stage. That's my understanding and my knowledge of it. And hopefully answers your question, Commissioner.
Yes, sir. I have another question. I know there was quite a bit of commercial in the first PUD. Now this one is greatly reduced. What would be an example of a commercial use inside the community? You said it was about 15,000 square feet of commercial proposed. What would that be? Any idea, or is there any?
As far as sorry, for the record, this is Josh.
Yes.
There is not a specific identified use or store at this point. The PUD does allow for a variety of different commercial and office-related uses. So giving the 15,000 square foot limitation or allotment there, it would be something on a smaller, more community, neighborhood-focused use, whether that's an office use or a commercial use, but it has not been determined at this point.
Thank you, sir. And my final comments, Mayor, I'm excited to see the project, come back on the drawing board. I know this time, U.S. Sugar certainly is going to, get this done for our community. It's good for our community. It's good, for our housing stock. And again, earlier I failed to say that, the Hampton is a centerpiece, but I also want to say that I think U.S. Sugar also sets a standard on 27 for their home offices there, and I think between those two, I think again, it's a good start for our future on US 27. That concludes all my comments, man.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez. Any other comments from the commission or questions? If not, I don't hear anything at the time. I'm going to go ahead and have the line unmuted for any public comment or questions. If you wish to speak, please press *1.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Molly. This is Jerry Cochran.
Yes, sir.
The Planning and Zoning Board approved this on a 4-1 vote. I was a no vote. I understand the developer wanted to maximize the use of the property, and I'm sure that they're going to do something very tasteful. My objection to it was the density level. And while it may meet certain standards, I moved here from the coast, and I see what happens when you start squeezing stuff together. We have been debating on the P&Z board as well about people being allowed to build on 50-foot lots, and some of the restrictions on that. And when I got the packet for P&Z to look at this, I'm not sure who was on the council back in 2006. That's some 19 years ago. But they approved 50-foot lots. They approved 45-foot lots. They approved zero setback on the side. And about 35% of this property is going to have to be used for green space, and that doesn't count the water retention areas. The bulk of this property is not going to have buildings built on it, and it's going to, I'm afraid, cause the homes and the houses to be jammed together. These smaller units, a lot of them are going to have a garage. If you have a small vehicle, it may very well fit in. But if you have a larger vehicle, it doesn't, and they only allow in 1.5 parking spots. What happens when these people have a party they have company over? We're going to have people parking out on the street, parking on swale areas, and I understand where the vote's going on this. But I just want to make my objectives known. I think you're trying to squeeze too much in there. It's true that they reduced the commercial from 75,000. They reduced it 60,000 square feet, but they're asking to add 170 units. Boy, we're going to have just a lot of units in there. They went from 200 single family to 140 condo. They've added another 170 units of residential. I just don't know where they're all going to put it. With a 0 lot line, I guess you can stack it in there, but I just don't think that that's something that we want in the city. I think in 4 or 5 years, no matter how tastefully it's done, and I'm sure it will be done tastefully, that those units are going to deteriorate a little bit. Low income workforce means cheap housing. And cheap housing means they don't pay a lot of taxes. And if you've got 3 or 4 people living in a unit, I don't care whether they're living in a 5,000 square foot house or a small house. The demands on the water and sewer system, which we can absorb, but it's going to take away some of our excess, our cushion. Demand for EMS, police services, school services, extra schools. I don't think it's a good idea to squeeze this many units on that small piece of ground. And I think we're going. If it's approved, and it's obviously, from the comments, it's going to be approved. And I think we're going to look back in 4 or 5 years. I'm afraid we're going to say, "What a dumpster fire! How did this happen? How did we allow this many units to get squeezed into that area?" I appreciate the time, and by the way, congratulations on your 20 years. While I don't always agree with you, I always know that you've got the best interest of the city at heart. So, congratulations.
Okay.
And thank you for the time.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Are there any other public comments? If there's,
I have a comment, Melanie. Why don't
okay.
we have Stanback respond to those concerns of Cochran?
Okay, I will, and I just wanted to hear any other public comments at this time. Okay, if there's not any other public comments, we'll mute the lines. Mr. Philpott?
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I was talking and I guess I was still muted. So
yes, sir. We can hear you
start
now.
over there. In response to Mr. Cochran's comments, we did address these comments and concerns at the Planning and Zoning Board. One of the main comments and questions was the parking, and the parking itself. The minimum requirement is 2 spaces per unit. Parking 2 spaces per unit will be provided at a minimum. That's not to say there won't be an opportunity for additional parking to be provided, but we will comply with the land development code at the time of development. Also, as was mentioned earlier, this project will be subject to an HOA, homeowners association, which will have specific requirements to, control the parking within the project, where it does not become a major issue. I understand that there are areas within the city that have difficult parking requirements or have difficulty with parking on street and those sort of things. The HOA will control that and address that. As far as the density and the clustering of homes, we did not change any of the property development regulations that were included in the PUD. We simply changed the picture or the map and the layout of the master concept plan. We did not, that table that is in there is from the original PUD. So we have not proposed to change that. And the other thing, one of the important parts is Mr. Cochran keeps pointing out that the number of units on this property. Well, the number of units on the property is, as you've heard from Mr. Risa before I testified, was this is below the density that is allowed in the comprehensive plan. And we feel that the units shown are appropriate, and there will be plenty of green space on the site without creating an undue burden on the community. So that's really all I have to say in response to those comments.
Okay.
If I could add one comment, please, Mayor, if I could comment. This is Randy Martin, City Manager. Just for those that are listening, the comment about price point on this. We've had some discussions with them. Some people are misinterpreting possibly what workforce housing is commonly referring to. My understanding of what they're trying to capture here is the $200,000 range property purchaser, median income, or whatever category you want to put the person that would be able to afford that in. So this is not by any stretch lower income housing. And it's not for, some people misinterpret workforce. The intentions, as I understood it from the get-go when we've had discussions on this, is to try to provide housing for those folks like teachers and professionals and law enforcement and fire department employees and EMS employees and a number of other categories of people who are having difficulty finding housing, adequate housing, for their income levels in the community. And it would also give them the opportunity for transitional housing. They'd be able to possibly rent, then move into a home ownership opportunity in that same neighborhood. So that's the comments that I've received in the discussions I've had with representatives of the developers on this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there any other comments or questions from the commission? Again, this is resolution number 2020-43, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving an amendment to the Gateway South PU Master Concept Plan. And I would like to make a comment. Mr. Philpott, when I looked over the work that you had done on behalf of U.S. Sugar, one of the things that jumped out at me was the motto of Stantec, design with community in mind. And that's exactly what I see. I know that there's a range of lot sizes, there's a range of lot width, there's a range of opportunities here for single family, multifamily, and yes, there's some zero lot lines, but it's not anything different than what I've seen when I've looked at Babcock Ranch, Ave Maria, and other developments that are taking off. And I look forward to seeing more information about the project as we move forward. But I have no doubt that the benefit to have this residential property process begin in our community is a welcome addition. So I look forward to more discussions and to more information. The recommendation is to approve resolution number 2020-43, and I will say that over the years, we do have concerns in our community about parking and things like that, but those are the issues that have to be addressed through our code enforcement, and know that we have in this project an extra layer with a homeowners association that also will take care of things as well. So I know there's work that needs to be done to get this project off the ground, and I'm looking forward to casting my vote to support this project to begin the process. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2020-43?
So moved. So moved.
I have a motion by the Vice Mayor and a second by Commissioner Rodriguez. Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Philpott, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and we look forward to more information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. We're at miscellaneous action and discussion items. Designation of voting delegate for the 94th Annual Florida League of Cities Conference. This is going to be held virtually, and I would like the Commission to consider to appoint our city manager as a voting delegate so that as he reviews the information from the Florida League of Cities, he can discuss what has been being presented with us each individually. And again, it's important that we designate one official to be the voting delegate for this business meeting. This will be for Friday, August the 14th at 2 p.m.
Do we need to put that forth in a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion that we appoint the city manager as the delegate.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second by Commissioner Rodriguez. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Martin, consideration of variance request from Net3 Investments LLC. I would think it would be you and Mr. Brandenburg.
Mayor,
Yes,
real quick,
sir.
it's Michael. I'll abstain from this agenda item.
Okay. This is agenda item number 10 in regards to consideration of variance request from Net3 Investments LLC.
Okay, I'll also during the discussion, I'd like Travis Reese, our Community Development Director, to make comments on the level review at the Planning and Zoning Board on this item. It is a consideration of a variance request from Net3 Investments. They are the owner applicants for a variance to the minimum lot and building requirements for property located at 332 West Ventura Avenue. I won't go through the particulars of it. I'll defer to Travis to go over that, and then we can hear from the city attorney on his comments, representing his views on this. Before the commission considers action, though, and we'll likely hear from the owner's representative as well, if that person's on the line. But I do have some suggestions for looking at this possibly in a different manner, not to digress from the request that's been made, but I think we need to keep in mind a comprehensive review of properties similarly situated. I know I've done a little more research since the agenda went out on the history of this particular parcel, as well as the Commission's actions to try to address this situation that has occurred in the past on properties in this zoning classification. So at some point in the discussion, I'd like to bring that into it. So I'll defer first to Travis to comment on the Planning and Zoning Board's review, and then we'll hear from the attorney and answer any questions before we go to the applicant and hear the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Travis Reese, Community Development Director. What you have before you is an application from Net3 Investments for a variance to the R2 standards, in particularly the building width. The requirement for this zone requires a single-family home to be built on a 75-foot lot. In 2017, we did add to the city ordinance an exception that if the house is existing on the lot, an occupied home on the lot, in the previous 5 years, that we may reduce that to 50 feet. The reason that ordinance came to be, a little recap of that, is we had numerous requests for variances from the same lot size in some of our areas. We seem to have quite a few 50-foot lots. So what we have here is an application that came in to construct a home that was outside of the 5-year window. So that required a variance if they wanted to build. As Mr. Martin said, we've discussed many things. There are some ideas floating out there that we think might could address this instead of going the variance route. But with that, I would say I'd probably ask if anyone representing Net3 Investments is on the line. To speak about that, Madam Mayor, would probably be better.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and unmute the line. Please press, that's okay. Please press *1 to speak. Is there
Good evening,
anyone?
Commissioners.
Yes.
Yes.
Here, yes. Thank
Laura
you.
Smith, Laura Smith on behalf of Net3 Investments.
Good evening, Laura. Your application is up for review right now, and I was just explaining what your application for variance to the standard was. But if you would like to speak on your behalf or behalf of Net3, you have the Commission's attention, and please proceed.
Thank you, Travis. I procured this lot prior to 2017 when the ordinance was changed. And it's still my desire to replace a home back there that is very symbiotic with the surrounding properties obeying all setback requirements and with a single entry driveway with a dual parking lot to avoid congested parking on the sidewalk, as is common along that road. I am going to ask that the request, the P&Z board approve the request, and I'm asking the commissioners to please review it. I do believe there's some other thought processes out there to perhaps do this in a more general form, and I'll be open to that suggestion.
Okay, Laura, I have a question on the home. It is a single family home. I didn't look at the square footage, but it's similar to what was there already in the past.
Yes, Mayor. It's about 150 square foot smaller, merely so that it fits in with the setbacks of the other homes, and it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single family home.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the commission of Mrs. Smith?
It's Melanie. I have a few comments, and I think we probably need to hear from the city attorney with regard to it. I looked at it, and while I hate to be a rain cloud where Smith is doing so many good things in our city, I think that the commission has to follow the law. And with regard to variances, I don't think that we are in a legal position to grant this one just because there are certain particulars that we have to find. One of them is that the hardship was not self-created. In this case, the statement that the city changed the ordinance is a true statement, but it was actually changed in the property owner's favors because the city in 2017, I think, changed the ordinance to allow 5 more years for the house to be replaced. So the law is the law. I don't think that we can meet the different elements of a variance, and I don't think we can grant it. And so I think we would be well served to hear from both the attorney in that regard, so that so that he can say whether he concurs or not concurs, and also from Mr. Martin with regard to an alternative approach, which I think that the commission could hear and implement, so that it actually doesn't only benefit Ms. Smith, but also other owners in the same predicament.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McGee. I'm sorry, who was that?
Commissioner Peterson, I agree. I agree with that.
Okay, all right. Mr. Brandenburg.
Well, your variance requirements are very strict. They require compliance with the 6 items that are delineated in the application. And I think it's quite questionable whether the justifications given actually meet those requirements. For instance, how special conditions or circumstances of this case do not result from the application or the result of the applicant, when the applicant is building a house that could be smaller. It just desires to make a larger house. So if you're going to allow any changes to the existing ordinance, I believe you should make them uniform for everybody. And they can be done by changing the lot width requirement for everybody, or they can be done by changing the time frame in which you would allow folks to build on these lots under the old requirements, extending the 5-year period for everybody by another year, perhaps, justified by the recent problems with the virus and other things that are going on right now, would be one possibility.
Okay. Extending the time frame, I think, is exactly what we should do. I know that the intent was that we have these smaller lots as we were master planned, and the John Nolan plan was for 50-foot lots, and I might be wrong on the actual the footage there, but anyway, there were smaller lots than the zoning changed in years after that. But to have so many vacant lots were whatever reason the homes came down, whether they had to be torn down or whether it was a fire, whatever it is, I think I would like to see, the same type of home or square footage of the home go back up on these lots. So I think that was our intent in 2017, to try to get some homes built on these lots. I think that's the intent of Mrs. Smith, to get this done. And I would like for us to see about extending the time frame. And I'm not sure if it's another year or if we should do it longer. I'll let you, as the attorney, Gary, and maybe the city manager opine on that, or Mr. Reese. But I rode around just on Ventura and noticed that there's other lots that could be built upon in the near term if we extend this time frame.
Mayor, if I could comment, this is Randy Martin again. My suggestion, having discussed it with staff briefly, and I have not had the opportunity to discuss it with the attorney, but I think Travis and the attorney had conversations previously. But I concur with his assessment, the attorney's assessment of the options that are available to you. My recommendation would be that we initially bring back an ordinance revision to the board, properly advertised, that would extend it. And to me, if the board in 17, and this is not a criticism, I wasn't here, didn't hear all the motivations or actions, but I would recommend that it be a full 5 years from the time the ordinance was adopted in 17, which I believe was March of 17. So that would take care of Ms. Smith's current situation and any other similarly situated. During the time between now and then, however, I think we also need to look at, could we accomplish some other more comprehensive approach to accomplish what the mayor had said the original goal was, which I think is the one it should be, is to make sure these lots that are situated like this can be built upon. And we come back, Travis suggested today, possibly with an overlay that would identify these particular lots and areas or something in that nature. I don't want to get too far down that path today because we've got some time, but if the board would consider an action to extend that 5-year period, and my suggestion is at least till 22, to March of 22, 5 years from adoption, originally in 17, that'll give us time to consider other longer term options for dealing with this, going to the mayor's point about is 2 years enough, or less than 2 years now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I know that there seems to be at least 3 of us who are in agreement of one can't vote. So, Mr. Rodriguez, do you have any thoughts on this?
Thank you, Mayor. You know that I'm known as the development commissioner. I've kind of thought out of the box a lot of times, and probably even Laura probably has disagreed with me on some of the things that I voted yes on. One that I look at, I hate to see empty lots. The DS project that hasn't been approved, which probably some people don't agree with me. But I have a question for Travis. The 2 houses that went up on Ventura, the little bitty house on the north side, and then the other house that we built on the corner there on the south side of Ventura. Were they similar requests than what Laura's asking for us of us tonight, Mayor?
Commissioner, I'm trying to recall those. I can't recall them at the moment, but I don't believe they were a variance request that I'm aware of. But I don't recollect that coming before the board. So if there were houses built, say, in the last 5 years and it did not come before the board, then they met all those property requirements.
The one on the corner of San Benito and Ventura did come before us because there were some issues.
Yeah.
Part of the lot was sold to the adjacent property owner, and so we worked on trying to meet the correct setback on that one piece of property.
That is correct. I stand corrected. That jogged my memory. That is correct. There is a piece of property there that didn't meet the depth requirement.
Right.
And the little house too, Mayor, I think came in front of us.
That was there. Right. This is the same issue. The square footage had to stay the same as what the original home was.
Yeah, I remember that house was built and it doesn't have a lot of yard in setback.
No, it was a new house built on the existing footprint, so to speak,
Right.
of the old house.
Well,
And so that's what we're looking at. I mean, those lots were platted, by the master plan, and I don't believe at the time that, the zoning changes, the impact of that on these lots, but to be able to rebuild back to the same square footage or less, I think is certainly the intent. I mean, to me, that should be our intent, so that we do have some homes on these vacant lots. And I believe that the time frame extending it is probably the right thing, and I'm not sure how we go about it, Mr. Brandenburg.
Well, I think that the immediate issue can be solved by extending the time frame, and then we can look at other solutions.
Okay, but we can't extend that tonight, or this needs to be on the agenda for our August meeting?
It would have to be on the agenda. You would have to have an ordinance.
Okay. All right. Okay, Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Is that
Yes,
agreeable? Is that agreeable to get this project done?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a little time on my hands, and if it gets me what I need to, I'll be patient and wait till August.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Is there any other comments or questions by the commission? Okay. I know that this was in a commission discretion, so I think we made the decision. Do we need to vote on this to have this on the agenda for the August meeting, or is that something that Mr. Brandenburg, you and Mr. Martin can address and have it done?
I would
I'll
ask
have it
that we
done. I'll
just
have it ready
table it
for the
time
agenda.
Well, but we have, right now we have a variance request, so which is not what we're going to be voting on. We're going to be extending our existing ordinance, so I don't know if we can table it. I think that we have to have an item, and, this is just a consideration for discussion tonight. Is that correct?
Well, you can take action on the variance request this evening. I would suggest you deny the variance and tell staff to bring forward the extension of time on the August agenda.
Okay. All right. Mr. Brandenburg, is there a commissioner that would like to make the motion as Mr. Brandenburg has suggested?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second? That was Commissioner McGahey that made the motion. Is there a second? I can only hear from Commissioner Peterson or Commissioner Rodriguez because the Vice Mayor has abstained from voting or discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Look forward to the August meeting.
Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
moving forward, I just, we need to take then another complete holistic look at what we're doing. There was a lot of discussion when we worked on this ordinance about the 5 years, about the lot line. And I remember specifically the comment, I don't want to build by variance in the city of Clewiston. And that was why we moved in that direction to enact the ordinance. So if we're going to make some changes, I think we just need to look at it holistically and make all of the changes that we think are moving forward in the city that need to be done.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Mr. Martin, I know that you took note of that.
Yes, ma'am, I agree. We will want a longer-term solution for this particular instance, and there may be other issues we got to deal with too. So I agree with that approach. But for expediency of the request, that's keeping the property owner in this case and maybe others from constructing, I think we need to move expeditiously at the August meeting to approve an amendment that will affect that by extending the period. But during that period, the next couple of years or whatever, we need to affect that longer-term solution. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Martin, go ahead.
Have the clerk please place that on the items to be completed worksheet so we don't forget about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, Mrs. Smith, thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good. Have a good night.
Thank you, too. Okay, Mr. Martin, COVID-19 update and discussion.
Yes, I won't belabor the numbers. They're available on the Florida Department of Health website, and given the lateness of the hour, I won't go into great detail there. I did want to update the Commission and the public that we implemented a number of reopening steps this month, and thus far, almost all of them have been productive and I think well done. We're revisiting a couple of items, and I'll be giving out further guidance on that with regard to a couple of facilities. In particular, coming up with a schedule for reopening to the public without appointment access to some of our other public buildings, City Hall and others. I'm revisiting that now, and we'll be issuing some guidance in the near term on that. Specifically, I did want to mention that there's still a great deal of hesitancy in the community to use facilities. As you know, we closed some of our indoor facilities for a significant period during the COVID crisis, and we authorized or agreed to allow some of them to be utilized for events. Thus far, there's very minimal activity in that regard, other than the elections that will be coming up that use two of our facilities, our youth center and the John Boy Auditorium, for the Florida primary election in August 18th. And the outdoor activities that have been going on for food distribution at the John Boy in the parking lot area and the access drive. Other than that, we only have so far 3 other proposed rentals in August and September for our youth center. We, of course, are requiring social distancing and other requirements for sanitation and so forth of any people desiring to hold events. With regard to John Boy, we have 3 events scheduled, none in July, 3 in August at this time, and 3 in September. 4 in September that have been calendared. We didn't go any farther out, but I just want to give you an update. There's not a lot of rush to have events, and maybe that's a good thing because people are concerned and they're being very cautious about it. We are proceeding with these, and we'll proceed with them with the recommended guidance guiding those who use the facilities. Wanted to mention that. Also, I'm assessing and reassessing the use of the splash pad. We delayed the opening of that. It's been fairly minimal usage, but we're looking at the guidance and may revisit that. And then, as I stated earlier, we'll be looking at allowing access to some of our other facilities in a phased approach as the improvements are finalized in some of our other office buildings. The library has reopened, and I haven't heard of any negative comments with regard to that. We did do it in a phased approach, as we stated. It's been announced, and public is allowed. We're limiting the number of people that can be in at a time and the duration that they can be in for the time being. But we'll continue to monitor that and adjust accordingly as we do the other facilities. That's the only update I have tonight. On that, I did want to mention, as I referenced earlier, and in Monday's workshop, budget workshop, I'll be talking in more detail, particularly on the items that we're pursuing for funding from the CARES Act through the county revenues that will be received from the state. There's several $1 million. This week, they'll be announcing the allocation formulas that the county's come up with. I've been pleased to have the opportunity to represent the city on the working group that's been working on that. There will be opportunities for the public.
Mr. Martin,
Yes,
I'm sorry. Could I ask the commissioners to please mute their phones? I'm not sure, or anybody else who's on the line, because I couldn't hear you there for a minute. If you could go back and review the CARES Act information for me, please.
Yes, the next week on the 28th, the day after our commission workshop on budget items, which I'll be reviewing our request for CARES funding, the chief of police will be there to represent regarding our communication ask, and several other items we'll be discussing in lesser detail than that particular communication item. But the county has come up with allocation process draft. I've been pleased to be a part of the working group as a representative of the city on that working group that has come up with the formulas for the various pots of money. There will be a public distribution in the neighborhood if the commission approves it of $1.8 million. The public should watch this very carefully. This will be for small business interests that have been impacted by COVID-19 in terms of closures and other aspects of impact. Individual assistance will also be part of the package. There will also be governmental assistance, and this is where the city is an eligible participant to receive a portion of these funds. As I previously communicated to you, we've made an ask for a set aside of funding in that, and it's been deemed that our requests are eligible items, and we'll be pursuing that. I'll be briefing you further at the work session on Monday, the 27th. Of the commission on that. The commission hopefully will, the county commission will hopefully adopt the funding formulas and other aspects of the recommendation of the working group on the 28th. And hopefully those funds will be available for the community and people to start applying for assistance on March the 3rd, the following week, is their plan, if it all goes as it's scheduled to be.
August the 3rd? Is that correct?
I think that's the date. I didn't look at the calendar, but if that's a Monday, I think it's the week after the meeting on the 28th. The assistance in that is robust, in my opinion. They're talking about based on different size of employers. It could be range from $5,000 up to $20,000 in assistance, depending on the size of the business and number of employees. And again, they have to qualify and be impacted by the event. And then individual assistance is on a separate scale based on several criteria of impacts that would help them with various needs. And there's still discussion on the details of that. The county is expected to publish that in the commissioner's agenda later this week. When that comes out, they should publish some of the details of the final recommendation that'll be going to the commission for action on the 28th.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the commission? Comments? Okay. If not, we'll move into old business, Ventura project cost update. Mr. Martin, I know that Mr. Tilton's on the phone.
Let me get back to my agenda. I apologize. Yes, Andy Tilton, I've asked him, several commission members have asked in recent weeks for an update on the Ventura project with regard to the schedule and where we stand in terms of permitting. And also, I'd given you some rough estimates that in terms of that we were looking at the project scope to try to come closer to within budget. We still greatly exceed, as you'll hear, the available funding from the grant sources. So we're looking at other options to fill that void, including going back to the state for additional grant funding once we know specifically how much short we are. Without further ado, if Andy's still available, I'd like him to give you an update on Ventura.
Andy Tilton for the record. Thank you, commissioners and manager. The permitting is through South Florida Water Management District, and actually the city's been granted 2 exemptions, one for the roadway work, and then there was also a desire to do some additional drainage work at some point in the future as budget allows, and that exemption was also granted at this time by the Water Management District. The FDOT funding requires them to review it. They provided actually a small number of comments. There were 8. We've answered those comments, and the plans that will reflect those responses are anticipated to be sent in to them in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Is there any questions from the commission?
Is there a cost estimate put together already?
Yes, sir. We have a cost estimate, and we've been working on refining that because some of the things that FDOT required will make some minor adjustments to that. And so I'll have a better idea in a week or two once all those have been made.
Okay.
Excuse me, Commissioner, but suffice it to say, it's well above the grant amount, at least, what, Andy, 200 to 250,000 above. So we're looking at other options for how we can fill that void, or more, and of course looking at the available funding we have for street resurfacing annually and other possibilities. And again, we also have the option to go back to DOT for any unauthorized funding, but it is not an insignificant amount, regardless of how these details. But as you requested, Andy, upon the receipt of the final permit changes, they'll update that estimate, and we'll get it out to the board and share that with you in greater detail.
And Randy, I just want to make a comment. We've been waiting on this Ventura Avenue paving project. You know, we wanted to make it more than just a paving project. But at this point, we've got to look at paving that road. So I don't know. I don't want it to be bare bones. I know there's some things that we need to do because of the drainage and maybe even some boring under the road for light and electrical. But we've got to get this project done for paving. So.
And Andy can comment further on your point, because we have discussed that in our review. That's essentially, I believe, where we're at, Andy. If you want to give them a scope as it currently exists of what we have discussed in terms of minimizing the project to try to get as close as possible to go forward with the absolute emergency need almost of paving.
Thank you, Manager. The items that will be done, one is that there's at least one place that the borings noted that there's some muck under the road, and so we're going to bid two different options to try to correct that, either removal or using some geotextile fabric to help strengthen that area. And that's part of the reason that patching and things doesn't last long, is because the base is just not good under it. And just simply milling it and resurfacing it without addressing that will make it such that it won't last very long. It will be back into its present condition within 2 or 3 years. And that's not a good way to go either. And so that's part of the reason that the cost is higher, is that there's more things that need to be done. We have taken off the bike lanes at this time on the sides, the 5-foot paved shoulder on either side, to try to hold the costs down. Those can be added in the future as an addition. Also, we've minimized the amount of drainage work just to that's going to go under the road that's being repaved. So when that comes to be done in a future year, that the road won't have to be dug back up again. And so all those things are trying to be taken into account while trying to minimize the overrun on the budget.
And I should say that the budget was prepared previously by a different firm some time ago, and that's what was used to apply for funding from the state. And obviously, we're facing a much different number now, and we will use that as our discussion with the state for a pursuit of additional funding.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from the commission to Mr. Dilton? Okay, all right. Thank you, Andy, for being with us.
Thank you.
I'd like to state for the record that this virtual meeting was held under Executive Order number 2069, which was issued by the Governor DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, as extended by Executive Order number 20-112, Executive Order number 20-123, Executive Order number 20-139, and Executive Order number 20-150. Municipalities may conduct their meetings of the governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 120.54 5B2 Florida statutes. The members of the City Commission that were in attendance was myself, Mayor Molly Gardner, the Vice Mayor Michael Atkinson, Commissioner Melanie McGahee, Commissioner Christine Peterson, Commissioner Julio Rodriguez, as well as the City Council Gary Brandenburg, our City Manager Randy Martin, and we held this meeting as stated on our agenda. Okay. I know that we all received our departmental monthly activity reports, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to our City Manager for any additional comments tonight.
I believe I've said enough, Mayor.
Okay. Our City Attorney?
No additional comments, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And I would just like to open it up to the public in case there was any item that was on this agenda that, or any comments that needed to be made at the beginning of the meeting and someone was not able to unmute their phones or to call in. If we'll go ahead and unmute the lines right now, and we'll accept public comments before we move it to comments from the City Commission. Okay, if there's any public comments at this time, please hit *1 and state your name for the record. *1, please, if anyone from the public wishes to make a comment before we get ready to adjourn the meeting tonight. Not hearing any public comments, we'll go ahead and mute all the lines. Okay, and comments from the Commission, I'm going to go ahead and start out tonight because I have several things that I do wish to talk about. One of them is, and going back to the discussion with Mrs. Smith, I noticed in her application that she did pay her $500 for a variance request. We denied that variance request last night, so I would like the City Manager to look at the cost of, I'd like to refund the $500 that she paid for this, since we realize it's not one person's issue. This is an issue for across the city. So I would like to see that refund done, since that it's a bigger issue than just a variance request. The other thing is that I'd like to add, and I did talk to the City Manager today, but there's several things that I'd like to add to our monthly calendar. One of them is an economic development plan on redevelopment with identified locations. We've been talking about this for a while, but the alley abandonment, tonight we saw the importance of working together with private businesses to get things done in the community for economic development. We've been talking about alley abandonments and easements and issues for several years now, especially beginning on the east side of town and moving west. We know that we've had requests in the past for a newer hotel and maybe even possibly a restaurant there. So I would like for us to see a list and staff that's identified these locations with requests that have come before us, and a time frame on applying for grant funding, as well as any other issues. So I asked the City Manager to please place that on the outstanding monthly report on our economic development, or I shouldn't say economic development, although it is. It's just plain old redevelopment plan on alley abandonments and work that needs to be done in applying for grants. The other thing I'd like to have added on the monthly report is Highway 27 and street calming efforts with DOT. I know that Mr. Martin's already been talking to DOT, and there's different possibilities, but I want that to keep that at the forefront every month, because I believe that's the only way we're going to get some of this work done on Highway 27 for traffic calming that we've discussed at the workshop in February and at other times. The other item that I'd like to see on the agenda is outstanding liens. I know we've discussed it at several times. about, especially for non-homestead properties, in code enforcement liens or any other liens that we can look at, have our city manager and our city attorney work on the list. I believe that Sherry provided us a list a while back, but we know that there's outstanding code enforcement liens on properties that are continuing to exist in the community, and I want to address those outstanding liens by having a monthly report to see where we're at on these outstanding liens. The other thing is that I'm happy to announce that on July 22nd, Mr. Martin will be with us, has been with us for 1 year, and that it is a requirement of the commission to provide him a review, and that we'll have that set on our August meeting so that each of the commissioners can discuss their review or their comments about Mr. Martin's tenure for 1 year. So we're glad that he's been here with us, and we appreciate his work on our behalf for this past year. And I know that there's probably other things that the commission wants to discuss with him privately, but also we need to put this on the agenda as a public matter. So we'll have our city clerk hand out our reviews this upcoming week, so that everybody has time to set an appointment with our city manager and get that back to the city clerk for our August 17th meeting. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Rodriguez for commission comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I want to get some guidance on face masks. I had a business call me today that, you know, they have posted on their door that the masks are mandatory, but then he's getting a lot of, you know, people cussing him out and, you know, just saying obscene things to him because their thing is that it's not mandated by the city or the county, so, you know, they don't have to wear a mask. So I know that Walmart, you know, nationally is asking people to put a mask on when they come in. In Clewiston, that's not the case because it's the same reason, because we don't have a local, you know, a mandate to put on masks when customers go in there. So I haven't opened since March, my dining room, and the reason being is it's confronting mask issues, of course, contamination and everything, you know, the concerns about the virus. I haven't heard any conversation about mandating masks in public places. I know that some of the businesses, you know, they have them on their doors, but they don't have any teeth. If the customers don't want to wear it, they don't have to. Obviously, they don't want to lose the business, so I'm sure they're just going to let them come in without the mask. So it's an issue. I think that I haven't heard anybody at the county or at our level discuss it at length. Do you have any suggestion on that? Do you have any input or on? I have a couple other things, but I'd like to get some a response to my question.
I think on the mask mandate, I think that, you know, this whole entire pandemic is an emergency. The Hendry County EOC and the Health Department, they've been the lead agencies on dealing with this issue. I know that Mr. Martin attends their meetings virtually, and I think that one of the things that we could do is maybe hear from him. But I've had folks ask me about that. I know that the state of Florida has suggested that everybody wear masks when they cannot social distance, and that they need to take care of themselves. But I believe that in the state of Florida, if there's a private business that's requested a mask requirement into their business, I believe that they're allowed to do that. So I will defer that question to our attorney and to the city manager.
Mayor, the response is that private businesses can establish rules for coming on their private property, and if they decide a mask is required, they do not have to let somebody in without a mask. And if there's a problem, they can have them removed.
I would comment that, and I've had a number of conversations with the folks at the county level. There's been no suggestion or impetus thus far in all of the discussions through the county and emergency management and the health department. There doesn't seem to be, and maybe I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected if I am, a support countywide to do anything. The city could do it. Obviously, a number of our peers have done so, and I'm not saying that would be a bad thing, but it would be quite a challenge to enforce it without the support of our business community. As Gary just pointed out, I believe they have the authority to deny access to anyone who doesn't comply with their rules in that regard, but particularly during the state of emergency. Now, whether the city should do it or not do it, I'd like some guidance from the commission on whether you want to pursue that. I do think it would be quite a challenge to enforce it. We are, and this is one of the considerations for reopening our buildings, I'm going to implement, unless I'm told to do otherwise by the commission, the requirement that anyone entering our public buildings would have to have a mask, or we would provide them one to wear during their visit. But that is within our city facilities. Requiring it at all businesses and of all citizens, as mentioned, the guidance has been recommended throughout most of this pandemic, that be a practice that individuals do. I have seen more significant adherence to it in my personal observations locally of late than I did weeks ago, but there's still a number of folks who do not advocate or wear a mask, and so I need some guidance from the commission in terms of whether you want us to consider putting in place such an order. It will be quite a challenge, and we will have a significant number of folks, in my opinion, who will push back, both owners of businesses possibly, but more particularly citizens who would not desire to wear a mask and would not adhere. But our peers are doing it. I've been in a couple of the other locations of late and observed, and that is a requirement in Palm Beach County and several other counties and cities in the region and around the state, and I won't belabor that, so I'll stop at that.
Yeah, Mayor, I was just in Orlando last week, and you couldn't go into a public building without a mask on. It clearly says it on the door, and if you didn't have one, that you weren't coming in the establishment. So, and I know down south they're doing it. All the experts says that it slows the spread. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why masks should be worn, and I know there's people that don't want to wear it for whatever reason it is, but I would be in support of wearing the mask. I wear the mask when I'm out in public, so I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but I am in support of wearing a mask in public places.
Are there any other questions, are there any other comments in regards to this discussion?
Mayor, it's Commissioner Peterson, and I'm going to say that I agree with Commissioner Rodriguez. I look at the numbers as they come out every day, and I just believe that we haven't gotten where we need to be or where we want to be. I'm sitting in a state right now that if you go out without your mask, it's a $500 fine. I mean, they've taken it seriously and they've lowered their numbers. So I do think we need to look at what we can do to get a handle.
Thank you. I'd like to say something. One of the issues that we have is that the county is the lead on this, not only for, of course, Clewiston, but also for LaBelle and Hendry County. And I think that if we, as a city, adopted a mask ordinance, or a mask requirement, then there's another outside the city limits, it's not going to be required. On the other side of the county, it's not going to be required. And I believe it's adding a burden to some of our business owners, as well as maybe to some of the folks who have to prove that there's a medical reason why they don't have a mask. Now, I wear a mask everywhere I go. I even wear one at work. I have one right here with me. I'm not against wearing a mask, but also I'm very concerned of us mandating the mask in the city of Clewiston, with it not being an entire decision made by the county. Yes, Palm Beach County has it, but it's the entire county. Yes, Broward County has it, it's the entire county. Yes, Miami-Dade has it, but it's the entire county. And so I think that those are some of the things, and I know that there's a meeting coming up next Tuesday by the county commission. I don't know if this is a subject they're going to bring up, but I have been from the very beginning telling folks to wear masks. When you're in public, wear a mask. You safeguard those around you, your loved ones, and you safeguard yourself. And, maybe we haven't been as good as we should have on getting that out, but I believe that mandating it is. I believe that we should continue to recommend it. We should lead by example. And I know I've seen several of y'all at different locations and at different events. You guys have your mask on, so I think that we're doing that.
Mayor, may I ask? I want to give you an example. During the peaceful protests, the county put a curfew, and they didn't consult with us if we wanted to do the curfew. That was a big issue, a misunderstanding with our citizens. Is there a curfew or not? So I don't know if we have to follow the county's lead on everything.
Okay. Well, but the thing is that this is the Department of Health. The Department of Health and the EOC have not recommended that we have a mask mandate. And again, we're going to be receiving CARES Act funding from the county, so it is tied together. Now, again, I'm in favor of masks. I wear a mask. I get everybody else that I know that I can tell to wear a mask, that you wear a mask in public. But I don't know about mandating it. And I guess there's three of us that have opined here. I look forward to hearing from the rest of the commission.
Mayor, it's Michael. I agree with you. I believe it's something that we need to leave up to the county, leave up to the EOC and the health department to make that recommendation before we move forward with it. I wear a mask when I go into heavily populated establishments or anything. I was just in the Keys for a week on vacation. Anytime you went in a building down there, you had to have it. So I think it's up to the businesses, and I think we're adults. Everybody's adult. If an establishment asks for a mask, be respectful of them. Wear a mask. You're in there for a few minutes. When you leave, you take it off and get in your vehicle. But like I say, I think that's something we should leave up to the health department and the EOC to make that recommendation.
Mayor, this is the last thing I'll say on this. I bet you if you polled, and I've talked to businesses in town, if you poll every business, you're going to get 9 out of 10 businesses in support of wearing a mask. So I'll leave it at that. But everywhere I go, people say, they tell me, why is Clewiston, why is West Palm or Miami, why is Clewiston not mandating, masks? So I think it's misleading by saying that businesses don't want mandatory masks, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Commissioner Rodriguez, I can say that I've only had one business who's contacted me that they were going to implement a mandatory mask and asked me about it. That's one business out of all the businesses of Clewiston. Now, I know that there's other locations that are mandated by masks, whether it's a beauty salon, doctor's office, and things like that they have the mask requirement. We know that private business, some of them like Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens, they're going to be mandating the mask. And so I think that that's the way it should go, that if there's a business that wants to mandate a mask, then I think they should, and that we should continue to encourage everyone to wear a mask. And especially now in light of with schools reopening, I'm also interested to see what's going to happen there and the requirements for masks in the school district. Commissioner Rodriguez, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I have one more item that I discussed with this Randy today about the stop sign on Burner, the stop signs on Burner. And I was just wondering, I've lived in my address for a long time, and I use that road to go to Walmart and get on 27. And to me, it's awkward to have a stop sign around the curve. My question is, why didn't we put it on Saginaw, one, which is a straighter route, and number two, I can remember people on Aztec asking me why we took the stop signs down that are, my kids can't play in the front yard because people are racing down Aztec from Olympia all the way down to St. Louis. And my thing is, my suggestion is not to leave those stop signs there permanent, to use them pilot throughout the city in other areas to see if other areas that are problems to get. And I know that we're getting a study on that now, and that's the apparatus that was put up. But my feeling is that those stop signs there are just to me they're in a wrong location. And I know that people all over town, I know they talked to you through the years, that people are flying through our neighborhoods and our kids can't play outside. For us to take Burner and not do anything else with the rest of the city, I think is a mistake.
Mr. Martin?
That's all I have.
On the stop sign, I know that was something that the Public Works Department looked at, and it was a decision on the location of it. Mr. Rodriguez brings up about Aztec as well, where stop signs were removed. I think this might be a good time for you as a city manager to look at the placement of the stop signs and determine if those are in the best location, or if stop signs that were removed need to be replaced back. Maybe that's a conversation with Public Works and the police department, as well as the volunteer fire department, to look at where's the best place for stops on either Burner Road, Aztec, or other locations in town. Because I know that Mr. Rodriguez talked about stop signs being removed on Aztec, but we also had them removed on Ventura. There used to be a four-way stop that is no longer there. Actually, two four-way stops that are no longer there. There's streets that do not have any stop signs. So I think it's something that we've not really looked at. We've done, as Mr. Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned, when we've had folks that have called with the concerns, which is fine, that we need to respond to concerns. But I would ask that you look at this issue from the perspective of the signage that we have in town on stop signs, and if they're at the right location, or are they missing from where they should be.
Be glad to review. We did get input from the police department and the Public Works on Burner Road, and from the residents in the immediate area there. And that one was done, contrary to some people, it was not done for speed primarily. It was a safety consideration. And I won't go through all those details because I previously reported them, but I had not heard until Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned to me today about looking at maybe other areas like Aztec, because I wasn't here when there were any others on Aztec, but I know there are not many now except at the four-way intersections. So I'll be glad to review those as well. I haven't had any citizen-initiated requests, so I'd love to hear from any citizens who have concerns in those particular areas. But I had seen where there was some evidence of crossbars in a couple of places around town where it appeared that they had been removed. But we can certainly look at any of those that the board would like me to focus on. But I do believe that the burner situation needed some attention, we can take another look. We did discuss alternatives such as Saginaw, but for several reasons, particularly the design of that intersection at where it is currently located is not, in my opinion, the best optimum design, because it's a intersection in a curve, and that's always a challenge, and that's reflected in some of the accidents, mailbox being hit and people cutting the corner of the street and not going through. But I'll be glad to do an update to the board on that at a later meeting when I have an opportunity to get the input from all the other folks on some of these other possibilities.
Okay. All right. If we could do
Some
that.
of the other things we might be able to utilize is ripple strips instead of speed bumps or stop signs, is maybe try some ripple strips in different areas that might be an issue.
Okay, thank you. And Randy, you'll look at that, and maybe our engineer can give us some input on that as well.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Rodriguez, was that all that you had?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Vice Mayor Atkinson?
I don't have anything.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner McGahee?
I have two things, real
Yes,
quick.
ma'am. Okay.
One, I would like on next month's agenda that the sale of the old police station, that building market, I'd like that to be put on the agenda for discussion.
Okay.
Second, I wanted to say how happy I am about the completion of the 4-laning of State Road 80. I think that is such a big, big deal for our city. And it started so long ago, probably 10 or more years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of was a project that got completed, maybe in the last few weeks, without a whole lot of fanfare. And in my opinion, that project is a much bigger project for our community and our hope of growth and development, and not to downplay what some people hope for in Everglades, but the 4-laning of 80 is going to be our ticket to success, in my opinion. And I think we should all give a big shout out to the District Secretary, L.K. Nandum, and FDOT for a job well done there.
I agree with you on that. Mr. Martin, if you could see that we send a correspondence to the DOT and to LK and just thank them for the project completion. I'm hoping that the county will do something. I know it's too late for ribbon cutting, but it certainly is I haven't been on the road yet. I haven't traveled outside the city for months now, but I look forward to going over to the other side of Hendry County and driving the road. But it did, Melanie, you're right. It took a long time. The push was in 2008, 2007, somewhere in there to get this done. And I'm also very happy that the county was able to continue to get this done. And the DOT certainly put the money on the table for us over the years to complete it in a quicker format than what had been anticipated.
And I know you were instrumental in playing a part in that, Mayor, and I tell you, it's worth the ride even if you don't get out of your car. It's impressive.
Well, I look forward to seeing that. There was a lot of folks that were working on that, so it's good news. I agree 100%. It's good news for the community.
I agree. I rode it this weekend the first time, and I rode it just to ride it. And I'll tell you, I'd read an article that was in the media that was really good. It gave a good history of that road of 80 all the way from coast to coast. And not having been here that long, it was really informative. But I had to ride it, and I was very pleased. It is a tremendous asset, and I couldn't agree more with the positive comments, and be glad to put together something to the district secretary, thanking them for that effort.
Thank you, sir. Is there anything else? Commissioner McGahee, was there anything else? Just those two items?
I'm
Okay.
nothing to say. Thank you.
Okay. All right. If there's not any other comments or anything that needs to come before the board, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion. Second. I'll take that as a second. We're adjourned. Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.